back to ALGS. The Split 1 playoffs have begun. It's time. The best crowd in esports. Make some noise. They're running on me. As we get ready for game number 1.
Look at the bodies. It's a graveyard down here.
Can he get the double? Yes, he does. Furlong going for the triple kill to kick off the ALGS playoffs in London.
He's going to be hitting some big
Oh
shots.
my goodness, the damage.
The Bravers are finally landing.
Guard is going to win this game.
Ascend will pick up the win.
Oh, he was like, he punched him.
Are you kidding?
He's on me. It should work out. Ligaboo. Oh, Scott with a Kramer. He's going to go in and finish off the damage as well.
Setting a world record.
23 kills. $1 million is on the line today. It is a shootout. I'm going to move forward to become the champions here in London. You want the money? You get the damage. TSM up in the skies. House goes down from the heavens. London belongs to TSM.
Welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series. It is with warm and welcoming arms that I introduce for the first time here in Year 4, the wonderful, the challenging, and difficult, wow, Challenger Circuit. I, of course, to no surprise, am Zephyr, but this time around, I am joined by the lovely Tiny Shiny making her debut.
I'm so happy to be here today with the Challenger Circuit kicking off for this split. There's a lot to be discovered, especially on the EMA side today, Zephyr.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at the year as a whole here, because I know we've been in the mix of Pro League and we've just come off of the qualifiers this last 2023 fall season. Now, for our teams where they currently exist, this is their chance to, well, catch back on up. If you didn't make it in during preseason qualifiers, Pro League is still just a series away.
It's only just beginning here, especially with our matchups today. One person will be guaranteeing their spot on the next Pro League qualifier that I'll have coming up within the next couple of months. But for now, we're going to focus on the action that we have going on today. Our typical 6-game series where teams will be fighting to earn points through both elimination and placements. As I said, first place will be going to that Split 2 Pro League qualifier, while the rest will be battling it out for some points for the circuits.
To no surprise of anyone, this is going to be a 20-team finale where we will be competing within 6 games here in the standard of ALGS formats. Of course, today teams will earn those points, notably through their placements, first 12, second 9, third 7. But Tiny, there's of course one additional way to put some scores up on the board.
Especially when you look at these placements, but the eliminations are going to be a second way for these teams to really get themselves up in terms of those points. But when we look back at it, everyone will be starting on an even 0 and will be able to adapt their playstyles based on, of course, that map system as well. And we've got a little bit of an inkling of how this game will be starting out. 3 on Storm Point, and we'll be ending our second half with World's Edge.
We've got a little bit of some contest to discuss later on here, but as we make our way through the day, most of these teams, like you said, even footing and fresh starts for their chance to succeed among the best. Speaking of those teams, though, let's finally take a look at the 20 rosters that are joining us here today. Notably, off the top of my head, we've got a plethora of teams, whether they be from the historic of Challenger Circuits past or even recently some entities that have actually seen some Pro League play.
There's a lot of these teams on here that have familiar names to look at. And I think a big one that we were talking about a little bit earlier has to be Pot, with Seven Oz's having plenty of Pro League experience, Taskmaster to round it out with their plentiful success on teams such as Fire Breathers and Aurora, rounded out with Presses. They're definitely going to be a squad heading into today. And I mean, you get to look around. You got Atnium playing in here as well, and even looking at other names, excuse me, over on the side of Gojego, excuse me. They love to mess with the casters on some of these names, Zephyr, I'm telling you.
Yeah, for at least for our friends at home today, you'll be either hearing Gojigo or Pokero when we discuss our friend over there on QPMS, as well as Bushi, who you might recognize from Vortex. But I know you were talking about behind the scenes. For me, of course, most notably, it'll be the discussion revolving around Thorfinn here on that Safe Bear roster. Right now, this is something that leaves us a little bit confused in terms of recent performances regarding 2R1C. Notably, Thorfinn was kind of a top-heavy factor here for that roster. Top 6 over on the board in EMEA, let go in this last round robin, and now looking to represent alongside Tamuchi and Flux there. It is not Isfraz in that 20th position. That is going to be Thorfinn instead. So, you know, kind of interested. Is this the star factor of Thorfinn himself that will lead this team on, or potentially we'll be bringing in some new legends to the pro atmosphere?
A lot of new names on here as well. Light On, another one of those squads where they haven't really developed much of a story yet, and this opportunity, participating in the finals of the Challengers Circuit, will allow them to break out the paper, break out the pen, and see what they can establish a name for themselves in today's competition. It's not going to be easy, though. Plenty of talented squads, both of players and teams, will stand in their way.
I'll tell you what, stories to be written here, but as everyone knows, the scripts are far from beyond our hands. Tiny, I'm going to throw this one over to you. After all of your lovely research and what you've seen from both Pro League and the qualifiers earlier this year, who are you watching out for today?
You know, I touched on them a little bit earlier when we were kind of rattling off some of these names. I mean, Pot has to be the team that you're looking to perform today. Every single one of these players has had extensive Pro League experience, and they're just itching to get back in with that competition, the Challengers Circuit. You know, that's going to be just the grounds to do it. They ended up placing second within the semi-finals, and the one team that took away that first with a difference of 85 points was Forbidden Gaming. And if you go ahead and look at their team, G Dolphin on that roster, the coach for TSM from the 2021 ALGS championships, and you know, has brought a lot of that success over to them with a really big gap between the first and second place performances.
Yeah, need more bullets to represent from G Dolphin this last Pro League qualifier. Now jumping over to join alongside Aku, who just barely missed out on Forbidden Gaming there in 9th overall. And you can see, of course, that former teammate on Atlas there, Tryhard Thor. So some conflicting narratives there, and plenty more with all these teams adapting to the matches at hand. You're going to hear my predictions as we jump in here. But with all that being said, Storm Point on the horizon. These teams, they'll look to set the pace here as we make our way into Game 1.
Game number 1 being on Storm Point. Well, a couple of contestation points to keep an eye out for. North Pad and Lightning Rod specifically both have 2 teams with their eyeballs on that. We're going to get ready to drop on in here momentarily. Those teams starting to load in. Get the list of them all right here. Character selection starting now.
Yeah, notably, we'll see what kind of meta might kind of form here. Notably, we are deep into that Conduit, Horizon, Bangalore, Catalyst factor here. So the only thing that is currently standing out to me is we do have 3 dragons there. Oni's going to be picking up that Revenant. Other than that, though, a lot of the same. Big Fat, they have dropped the Caustic as their pickup. That's going to be a choice and a half for a map like Storm Point.
Not just that, they were also rocking the Valkyrie out there as well, and some interesting decisions in terms of how they're going to play their Storm Point match number 1. Players just now starting to head out. Keep an eye where Lightning Rod and North Pad, both with potential contests on the way.
All right, well, as our dropship finds its way through Storm Point for at least the first time today, we're going to pop over here shortly to see how that Thunderwatch Lightning Rod contest might be going. Notably, though, is the fact that that is a split POI. You can take advantage of both spaces there. So for either of these teams, if they don't actually want to fight this one out, notably it is Pot versus Amaterasu here, they don't have to, right? They can take their time, get themselves looted up, and then turn around a little bit later on. But instead, a bit of a surprise out here by Checkpoint. Kneecap going to be facing some difficulties here early on.
Yeah, Kneecap on this far end of the map. I mean, a contest they might not have seen coming. Rocking out with Funk on this Crypto too, so they should be able to scout these players out in the building underneath. Now that they have the proper weapons to approach that purple Evo Shield on the other side, it's going to make this a bit more of a resource game, and Kneecap know that if it's 3v1, they can surely start to win this one on out, completely caught off guard. Leah Stevens and Kryzen getting a trade across.
2v2 here. Funk, though, looking lower and lower on this Crypto. Gonna have to step away. Arcs are thrown out from Kryzen here, looking for some kind of response, but blown in tow. It is looking, though, like this is less of a 2v2 and potentially more of a 2v1 here. Have to wait and see. Spitfire in hand behind the box. It is, yes, a duo that finds themselves eliminated here right off the bat. Gojigo, Prokoro, to be facing their difficulties out in 20th to start the day.
And not the right way for this team to kick it off. Vushi was coming into this match and had some high hopes for their squad, and settling for an early fall, not the way they wanted to get things kicked off. Kneecap, on the other hand, happy to pick off these early elimination points.
Meanwhile, Pot here, this was this discussion we talked about early on, and notably, nothing to come of fruition here. And that's what I talk about when we say there is that split between Lightning Rod and Thunder. Now, granted, with the zone, though, only kind of vying out here, just slightly below this team, it's very unlikely, but at least from what we can see, Amaterasu has actually opted for Coastal Camp. Pot gets the entirety of Thunder and Lightning Rod to themselves, at least for the start of today.
And that's going to be a major pickup for Pot at the beginning in terms of that resource game. And you'll see that Atlas, Placol, and Trojan are all kind of in that same area. And that's going to leave them in a dangerous spot moving forwards. And especially with where these rings are currently placed, well, it's going to work out in the beginning. Once those teams start rotating in, they'll have to be careful of where their opponents are positioned.
Now, notably, we will be seeing this one finish out towards that Stormcatcher area, potentially towards the eastern side, where you see teams like Pot going for the wide rotation, but also Trojan setting up in those, we'll say, low-ground buildings there, alongside with Placol on Stormcatcher itself. A good majority of these teams, though, still looking for the wider berth of their own movements here. Shimani, SBS, and Big Fat trying to kind of foot their way through the Lagoon area, and might be seeing some pressure as they start to intercept.
You can see we have Placol on top of the building. Lynx are holding that one down. We need to look more down to the side. It's Pot meeting Atnum and Risk Powers in the building. A Pot, this is a battle that they want to take. The doors are reinforced. They'll chuck the grenade in, trying to break this one out. The Catalyst is working to their favor. They have all of the smokes and the utility in the world to play this slow. The opportunity to kind of go in and strike it out. Taskmaster, though, starting to back off, opting for more of a retreat after what seemed to be an ambitious take into the front door. They're not going to take the battle at all.
This is a tough setup, too, because if you extend too deeply there, you never get the chance to actually secure these things safely, right? We know there are teams that set themselves up on the exterior there, on notably Stormcatcher, but also these other teams that are looking for similar spaces. Deathwish coming in themselves up off of what looks to be an evac here. So, if that fight doesn't take place within 30 seconds, it's good wisdom from Pot. They pull away, they know they've got that height to play on the backside. It isn't the greatest cover, but it's enough to keep them healthy and surviving as we talk about some of these future endgames.
And we got to see the endgame. We saw those rings, how they were going to play out a little bit, and those teams were already in a very good position, whether they're aware of it yet or not. On the other side, we're going to look towards the east lift where Deathwish kind of hanging around on this elevator area. Instead, we get to go back. It is Sherp along with Shamani kind of fighting for some of this control over the river.
And we talked about this kind of rotation for teams to make their way in. Big Fat has been set up here within the lagoon, taking their time and at least holding out pressure from some of these southern chokes for these rosters trying to put their way across. But for Shamani, they themselves more than happy to take up height and some extra from Launchpad, punish some of these late rotators finding their way back. It's unlikely that we'll see the follow-up on a knock like this, with only now Mask and Sherp starting to get into the action themselves.
Yeah, it's been a slower start for Shamani here. Well established in terms of those evil shields. Which, while they're doing fine, you can't say the same for Blackholt on the other end. Blackholt, they finally got broken into with this building. Lynx are cleaning up the houses. It appears it was G Dolphin going down with Forbidden Gaming, losing out on several of their own team members. Blackholt getting George back on their feet. Just all the more risky situation for a potential to get your players back on their feet.
It is going to be a bit of a mix there with Death Wish, of course, Light on, Forbidden, all in the action. Amaterasu finally making their way in here up onto the low ground height. You can see them taking advantage of a little bit of Forbidden's items there. That might have been, I believe, the full wipe on 19th, if we are correct. We'll have to wait and see there. For now, Amaterasu, even as far south as they have started, they've gotten themselves a happy move all the way to height here.
Well, they may have gotten that move. 3 Dragons are still way off on the side of Checkpoint. And it's going to take quite a while for that rotation to get underway. While a lot of the other squads have already found their way inside that third circle, setting up for that late endgame that we've been talking about a little bit more.
Now, 3 Dragons is another one of those rosters that I was watching out for here, and we'll have to wait and see how they fare in terms of a rotation this deep, but they've definitely got the quality of players to do so. Juicy, Oni, coming through here literally a split day away from being a part of Pro League after some removal of their former teammate Sunzi, were unable to make the jump. Now alongside Folty, a former competitor along teams like Average Funk Enjoyer, this is the perfect opportunity for them to strut their stuff, show that they are capable, and will reintroduce themselves potentially to what was so close of a Pro League opportunity again.
It's been done once before. The 3 Dragons certainly are going to have their work cut out for them as they begin to move across the map. We're going to go back to where we saw this major first contest for Colts on top of the building, and with Falcons being in this position, kind of just firing these shots off, so anybody who wants to peek their head out, go try to make the rotation through the valley. And you got to be careful. The danger that lurks on above.
This is definitely a spot that can provide its advantages, and especially in terms of these teams that try to put their way in, whether it be from the west or south here. For Cloud, it's very unlikely, though, that they are going to be finding themselves in a position of an end game spot. When we get to that zone 6, Stormcatcher is no longer available, so that further rotation will be big news for them. For now, though, we tuned on over to our friends on NPC. Already not just a drop knock, it's the full wipe of Big Fat.
If we pay attention to what Big Fat were doing earlier, they were actually just driving around the map, and NPC, they caught that out. It's not exactly your silence, and now they need to be ready to take yet another fight. Myth has discovered them, the third party. They haven't had a chance to reset their shields quite yet, and with how much health Last Stand still has, this is going to be challenging. The gravity lifts, launching them up and away. Myth trying to skeep out a sliver of HP to spare, already down both of their teammates. Myth, what they thought the battle that they could win, turns out to be in a devastating disaster. They instead will be the ones to be knocked out. NPC lives on.
And this for MVC is a fiery start now. Massive KP Adjourn now in possession of both of those teams here, and with great defense against Myth, they are the sole positioned team just south of Stormcatcher here. And I'll tell you what, it was great smoke play in the chaos there. You could see that from Myth, unable to truly track and lay down where exactly was MPC. Now, My question for them is, how will they bridge the gap here to find themselves onto a further height of Stormcatcher is a very, very difficult place to, I will say, upheave, especially with Foucault there up on height controlling things.
Yeah, realistically, NPC, they're gonna have a difficult time moving on through, and perhaps another bit of spray. Things to push them on in. ASCII and Crone wanted. Trying to push on through these smokes. Already used a lot of the ultimates. They had a couple knocks on through. They are in favor of this, but trapped, corralled in a corner. Interesting, making it difficult to push on forwards, especially being on the low ground up the staircase. Saw the break on the shield come on in, and this is the time for Wanted. Dive through and strike. Tashin will go on down, and the big player we expected to perform knocked out of the mix. It's only a matter of time. Can Calm manage to get their players back up?
This is tough in terms of just a single member remaining. It's getting to the point where in a game like this, it's a little too late for Calm to confidently have a place to find their teammates back up. But for Wanted, it's great control. Even in the face of the entire energy barricade down there, they were able to push appropriately, play the timeout well, and get up there before revives came through. Meanwhile, for Safe Bear, I don't think they truly live up to their name. There's far from safety experience here. And while, yes, Oni will go down, they've already pushed them off height and are more than happy to set themselves up. An evac extended there, but a better aim from Doozy to send it out on a grab lift.
And we questioned if 3 Dragons would be able to push themselves back in this game. The question is absolutely getting that full squad wipe onto Wanted is a great start, gilding up that KP. Calm now, our next team to fall out of the mix. 14 squads on the field, and we might just get down to our 13th. The tactical from Conduit, giving the team an extra boost. 001 Esports cracked through the shields. Robin has to manage to stay alive. The smoke providing sufficient cover, especially the fact that they're playing on this absolute graveyard of a hill.
For MPC Esports, they're more than happy with the loot they've accumulated. The question is, can they put it to good use? For 001 Esports, they've got to make tight decisions and quickly. Already expending the Rolling Thunder is a huge loss in terms of the utility available as that zone is closing in. Now, notably, there is an evac available, but there's not a lot of really good extension in terms of where that might go. So though, barely extending out here, a couple of ordinances, pressuring forward, a revive extended from the other side. For Sivin, caught with his pants down, shot out from the eastern edge here. For 001 Esports, they have to pull away. They cannot capitalize on any of those knocks.
No, I mean, Sivin was in big, big trouble. The fact that they managed to get out alive needs to be a win within itself. Barrier closing in momentarily. Just a matter of getting up this hill. Finally, the graveyard shall see some peace and quiet. Sivin ends up going down anyways. They're still trying to fight this one out. 001 Esports let their guard down for a split second, and it's going to lead to their demise.
For NPC, they continue to amass the pile of bodies that remains below here. Quite literally at this point, even if they are to go down now, they have put up 9 points on the board from their KP alone. That is upwards of second place, and with SBS looking worse and worse to fare here, it's a big lead from Sewo, but it is just as quick of a knock to represent. Vichy from the other side, shot from behind, as it is the 4th team for NPC to pick up here from Southern End.
And it's in the exact same area as Zephyr. They're literally playing King of the Heel, guarding those loot boxes, tearing players to poke around the corner. And that's just the way they're going to manage to break in to this point of interest where this circle eventually is going to lead. A massive game from NPC, even if they end up being the next squad going down.
I mean, it's already big wins for them as the placement is just barely starting to stack up here. 1 point for some of our recent teams that have fallen, and 1 point for 12th through 11th here for moments to go. As we take a look at that circle, it's exactly where we discussed earlier on the eastern edge here of Stormcatcher, Trojan, Shimani, Lacult, all in great positions. Even Pot over there on their minor high ground to play with. For a team like Atlas, though, it's going to take some big sweeping moves. A Radiant transfer already expended and an evac to send for a place to call a happy home.
They are able to oversee the battlefield. They'll take a bit of a chunk of damage, but end up settling on this building where we already have 2 different teams occupying, and this is not a great cover spot to be on right now. You're waiting on players to drop on down, and somebody can manage to peek from over the hill. Atlas in a bit of trouble.
This is good, though. Notably, they can't extend too far out on the other side because Pop will take advantage here, but at least for now, more focused on the building above as we get a little bit of a tiered cake here. 3 rosters stacked on top of one another here. Now, I will say, when it comes to Stormcatcher itself, there is still just a little bit of that hype available for teams to continue to play. For our friends here on Kneecap, they have found themselves but a fissure to behold here. Literally, but a fraction of space to peek out from.
Oh. Yeah, they're in a good old-fashioned group hug right now. Kneecap, there realistically isn't a way for them to move. They need to try to take the poke battle across the way and have some sort of opportunity. Only a minute before the Ring 5 circle starts to close. The Watson isn't going to get much value in this exact situation, so perhaps you can wait a Valkyrie ultimate to get them into a better spot. Yet right now, Shamani need to make sure they can get all of their team back up and standing. This final circle is going to come down shortly.
Great Dark Veil in play here to give some additional time for the likes of Shamani to get this rotate off. While they don't have a position in just yet, this is a setup for what could be a great end game place of control. As that zone tightens, this, as you'll find, will be one of the very few high grounds if the pull is advantageous. The only thing they have to worry about, Pot over on the side, now already laying in shots. Sherp there taking the main brunt of that one.
Yeah, Sherp has to hide off back around this tree, get some of those shields back up. I mean, 07's has just been deadly when it comes to that 30-30. I believe that's the 3rd player we've seen them knock just from keeping an eye on the kill feed alone. So the Rolling Thunder come on in, doesn't do a whole lot of anything. Blackwell has managed to stay on top of this building the entire time. They have not moved, and there has been zero reason for them to do so. The fight can be taken to them. Here, their death wish might be in a death of their own, being pulled all in and shut down to none other than MPC, who are still standing after all of this time, just trying to set a record for the amount of KP they can grab at this point. They have another squad. They're attempting to chase on down, and Black Holes are finally removed from their throne. Falcons has fallen. Linkser is there. It's only Jord, the last one standing. While their positioning was amazing, they just couldn't pull it out through this endgame.
No, and for Wanted, they themselves will likely fall all but similarly. Mehmet barely able to keep things running. A small place to spy away here behind a pillbox, and while the AP and the remnants of his team are picked up down below from Amaterasu there, you have to wonder if they might get involved. And I'm pretty sure it's just the one destroyer staying alive now. Spotted out from the other angle. Might be forced up here whether he likes or not. He's got, I mean, the shield swaps to boot. Then.
Shield swaps work out, but how much is that going to fare against 3 players actually locked in your crosshairs? And Pot themselves, they're the team that we expected to go long into this game, yet here they are, Taskmaster. Once that passive starts to wear out, you don't have shields, you don't have health, and down you go. That was both the singles falling at the same time. In a matter of seconds, we have lost 4 squads, and there's only 5 on their feet.
For both Pot and Shamani, they both go down at the hands of this excursion here, taking too much damage in tow against one another. To our top 5 remaining, Atlas on the outskirts here. Plenty of more, and most notably, still yet alive with a KP that has ballooned, now supported by a top 5 placement. NPC make their drop.
NPC, this is their time to shine. They've been in the spotlight in game number 1 so far, and why not just take the crown on with them? Digital Sight's helping to fight through these smokes, and that's 3 dragons going on down through the back. Only 3 teams in NPC by far in the best position and a ton of resources to start to work with. The Dark Veil is going to split some of these squads up. Tryhard, Thor, and Zuni corralled back behind the tree, and it's going to be a potential third party here, Atlas, they're arguably in the worst position out of the current 3 squads right now, just rotating, waiting for somebody to dare and peek their head on out at them, ended up getting knocked all throughout this. Atlas, this is their chance to move forwards.
It's good damage down and stuck with the wall on their back. They'll send Trojan home, but for MPC, from behind, a good wall in play forces the fight to happen, and for them, it is a win that is hand-delivered, but not, I will say, easily fought for. This is a team that picks up probably one of the largest starts to a challenger circuit I have ever seen.
It is absolutely insane how much MPC were able to get done here in game number 1, following the lead of Robin with that Pro League experience. I mean, Flyzon and Taylor have seemed to be incredible teammates to fight side by side, and Zephyr, I mean, this is certainly a squad we are going to have to keep our eyes on later down the line. We didn't get to talk about them as much within the first series because we were wondering how Robin would be able to work with their new teammates.
Yeah, this is something that, you know, you have to be there to experience, and for the likes of at least Taylor and Flyzon, I mean, this is a duo that has seen previous performance in Challenger Circuit, but never quite like this. For the likes of MPC, well, we're getting those points up in the back end. Even if we don't see them, we know for a fact that with the 4 or 5 squads on top of a win, this is something that will continue to protect them, not just off of this game, but potentially the next 2. Let's pull those up and see exactly where they fall.
Oh my goodness. MPC just dropped a 30-plus game at the very start of this Challenger Circuit Finals. What a statement to roll on out with when even Atlas, the team below you, has less than double that.
That is just for reference, coming out of that one there, 22 kills picked up by NPC. Literally, a third of this lobby had been dwarfed, assimilated, and put into the NPC pocket here. It is only but Atlas just behind them with the wealth of their placement points that, like you said, comes up in a still monumental 19 points behind them here. For MPC, this is now something that will give them their freedom, their credence here on Stormpoint, at least for the next 2 games.
Yeah, honestly, you don't even need to have an above-average performance with the lead you've currently established in NPC. I mean, surely, we don't expect to see anything less than incredible after you have set the mark that high. But even then, you have an incredible safety net to fall back on should they need to do so, and it was absolutely amazing to watch their performance here on Stormpoint for round 1, and I think I want to touch on this a little bit. We wanted to see where Pot would kind of be performing, and they ended up in 9th. They had a rough time breaking in to where a lot of these already established teams were posted.
Well, you've heard it from the top end here, from incredible to questionable. There's still games to be had here. We're going to go to a short break. When we come back, we'll introduce Stormpoint once again for these teams to get their second chance. Welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series Challenger Circuit Finals number 1. I, of course, am Zephyr, joined by the lovely Tiny Shiny. And before we get into the matches once again, let us remind you of the points that are set on the board. The bar that has been set. NPC with 34 points, the highest start I have ever seen in my history of Challenger Circuit casting.
It is not often that you are going to see a team in this current stage of competition, especially at this level, pull away with such a lead. And it truly is a memorable moment for NPC. And now our expectations are set for them as well. As we get ready to head into our second round of Stormpoint, will they be able to pull off a similar performance today, or are we going to see another team emerge from within the depths?
Well, I'll tell you what, the Stay Healthy ecosystem has come to represent between Atlas, Trojan, and Bacalt here, from Atnum to Zuni there and Linkser. Notably, these are all 3 previous representations that have found themselves now, at least in trying distance here in that 2nd through 5th. 3 Dragons, even though they do start out there from the west, do live up to the expectations here. Juicy, Fulty, and Ani now set up in 3rd, tied with 9 points themselves. Will have to continue to put pedal to the metal here, because if NPC put up a game like that again, they'll be finding themselves in a hand of points that some teams don't even achieve over the course of 6 games.
No, this is absolutely insane. I mean, NPC have put up an equivalent of what you could see from almost 3 games from several of our teams, and they could go out last here within the next 2 and likely still be within this top 5 standing. So, and it's got to be a feel good, and you need to be watching out. Will they let it get to their heads for the second game? You start out with such a dominant performance, and now the additional pressure of having to keep that up. And you know, I want to see if they kind of make that graveyard of a hill again. They stayed in the exact same pot, knowing how incredibly difficult it is for opponents to push on up, and just collected kill after kill after kill until finally their hunger was satisfied and they could move on in. So get ready to go into game number 2 and see if anybody decides to change up their game plan in terms of these character selects.
I feel like at this point, this is a different kind of pressure that has set itself upon a majority of these teams. At the end of the day, you know that team that finishes in first will be guaranteed a position into the Pro League qualifier, and now it's not a catch-up day. Right? You're not in a position where you've got these games to potentially come back into it if you've started with 5 or 6 points. If you're looking to win, to set yourself above the rest and guarantee a position here, you have to have an explosive performance.
NPC certainly delivered on that. Will anyone else be able to replicate it is the big question. Has that bar been sent too high? Gonna find out shortly. These teams watching the rainbow overhead to begin to drop down into Stormpoint for game number 2.
Now, notably, when we talk about early contests, we did see just the one, which was going to be a minor presence over towards Checkpoint here, with, I mean, some early presence from Gojugo, Poco, and we'll see if they potentially readdress that location, if it is potentially dissuaded given the fact that they are a duo, and if they want to be actually surviving for those average placement points, it's likely better to just eat your lumps, go to a worse POI, and just try to survive on average. Because I know we've been amping up first place, but for any of those who don't remember, Challenger Circuit does allow you to pick up those Challenger Circuit overall points that are totaled up at the very end of all 4 of our weeks, and the top 18 teams alongside our 4 winners go to the Pro League qualifiers here.
There's plenty of opportunities to succeed, even if it's not in that very first spot, and there's tons to be fighting for in this game today. No major contests appearing off the bat, and the only really major thing that we could kind of get a glimpse of on this map is, you know, Myth. They're a little bit more spread out. They have the occupation of those POIs, and even the people that were more, in shape, right? The ones that were going for those contests initially have now opted to go for a safer long game.
Yeah, so no early fightings, at least for Stormpoint, and something that'll probably stay consistent for the rest of our matches today. As we take a look at this circle, I do want to point out that we're like to see one of those either high ground ridge endings towards the edges of Millage here, or of course the outskirts of Mill towards some of these south side buildings just outside of Checkpoint, or potentially even what might be potential new CO station, but I highly doubt that. Deathwish going to be the first to get some early takes on their positioning and predictions for this end zone.
Extended heavy mag here. Level 2.
Yeah, Deathwish will be able to have that initial setup, at least at the beginning. NPC now playing more on the coastal route. And we'll have to make a longer route back to where that zone initially will be landing. And, you know, we've highlighted them plenty throughout today, but Robin in particular has been stellar when it came to that bank where a lot of these smokes presented themselves with eliminations, getting NPC up towards the top ropes. And the only thing that could be different here is Achimasu more towards the central position. And now I have to just gather the resources and waiting for their time for an opponent to walk right through.
Something I do want to see from MVC is how they fare in terms of that extra distance. For now, Wanted, trying to barely foot their way in, is going to meet the hands of Deathwish on the other side. Notably, looks like a gold knock has been found by Met here early on off this rotation from the outskirts of Down Beast. But for Deathwish, with knocks found, they're more than happy to take advantage. They get that early information regarding the gold knock, and that'll be now in their hands. As just barely here will we see Wanted crest the ridge. Mehmet able to survive on just a fraction of health there. Kneecap might get lucky and potentially find some damage on the back end.
Yeah, we got to see Kneecap a little bit more towards the tail end of that series, and to see Wanted in this much trouble early on certainly isn't a good sign. And Mehmet able to kind of skirt their way on through. Deathwish already have another battle in sight, but so do they on the other end. It's Trojan cooped up in the building. The smoke's already out. There's no efficient way to see on through. This is optimal time to go for the res onto Remix, but to lose Atnium in the process. Trojan are in big trouble.
Still able to stick at least a minor revive there. Remix back into play with Atnum. Take it back on the interior, but love this extension here from Mosin. It isn't going to come up big in terms of the full damage out, and surprisingly, able to survive as well, preventing that revive's time. It's up to Remix now. Full off the same.
Players up on the stairs, those shields being shredded like paper. The opportunity to move outside that window. Mosin now popping out a health kit as well. It's a 2v2 in the room with the high ground being occupied by the opponents. They can drop at any time, and this is the moment that they shall strike. Yet it is Remix Powers with the superior aim in this regard, narrowly escaping their crosshairs.
Able to take the time to get healed back up as Trojan have now extended to the interior here. This doesn't change the fact, though, that Atnum is not a member of this team here. Notably, getting themselves back up is going to be a bit difficult here, at least in terms of, well, we'll have to wait and see. Most of these teams won't let them get outside of Mills without some level of punishment. We do have mobile respawn beacon, at least in Crafters, they can get to the exterior, but with most of these teams already moving in, SPS in play here, and there's actually on the rampart of all things the controller picked up in this term, already setting up on those doors there.
Yeah, they'll have to set up on these gates knowing that their opponents would be relatively weak, yet Trojan aren't peeking their heads out. Only SPS are there to knock them right on off, and having this set up within the building, you're in the zone and the rampart, it's going to make it all the more difficult for opponents to come in for a contest.
It is interesting. They extend themselves all the way around there to see if they could pick up what could have been final members in play. Now this, though, I find even more entertaining here. What I can only assume, and I'd have to go back and check, is the current presence of the initial Zone 1 here has led a couple of our teams to potentially believe that we are looking towards a barometer finish, and they are going to be sorely mistaken here. Now forced to go for the deeper or deepest of rotates up towards the northwest. That comes at the cost of not getting one of those early scans, or at least your POI maybe not having one. You can already see Amaterasu, 001, Myth, all starting to make the expedient move out here towards, well, what should be proper placement.
Yeah, they're going to be making those longer rotations through the outside and identifying where that's going to be. And a lot of those teams hovered on in. We touched on SPS, who committed a lot of those resources to try to hold down within that initial building. As you said, they're going to be sorely disappointed with where this round is going to be taking us today. Those end zones not going to be favoring them at all. Myth themselves in a bit of danger. Caught on out the conduit. With those shields back online, Myth with a nice couple pops over the top side. The Rolling Thunder, though, there's nowhere there for them to hide, and they have to pull back as much as possible.
For Myth here, trying to take advantage of some of that early noise. Forbidden, by the way, after their extension on Mills. They rotate all the way down here and get caught out as a result. For a roster that we had high expectations here from Akut, 9th place overall alongside the team last time around, and G-Dolphin, of course, present on Need More Bullets. This has been a double zilch, 0-0 for them to start off the day with.
And that's really tough. I mean, Forbidden, you're coming in here with some notable names on your side, G-Dolphin being one of them, and this map of Storm Point has not been playing towards them at all, and to be going out within the first 2 or 3 teams is not a good look for them moving on forwards, and hopefully they can take this extra time to reevaluate their game plan going on forwards. 001, on the other hand, they have things all planned out. Making that rotation up towards the top of the zone, pushing them at their backs, filtering them on forwards, whereas NPC have found themselves face-to-face with Myth once again. Robin barely in trouble, the conduit! Taylor charging the beams from across the map. Will manage to get the shields up. Robin is still standing at a critical moment.
Big moves forward, though, from Blizzon here over on the other side, looking to pressure back, and for the likes of what we assume is Myth, they've already made their way out in across here. That Radiant transfer is going to be starting to extend out and low for Robin, likely to stick a battery before, yes, taking this evac. For NPC, where they land, a big question. Something like Godrock has already been taken. IMC Armory spotted out, but even still, they've opted to ego fort, send on top here, and this can be a great place to play in terms of choking out a lot of these teams, getting some early damage from afar, but optimally, it's going to take a little bit more of a deeper berth here if they want to survive for an endgame. But granted, last time around, NPC were more than happy to play the slow game.
No, this is exactly the position that NPC want to be in, given their style of play, providing the chip damage from above, and striking when it is most optimal to do so. So even if they have to move off of this rock eventually, or maybe a little sooner, Taylor was slipping off the edges, they'll be okay to stay in this spot, get a survey of the land, and they'll be able to make those next decisions well educated.
Out here towards the likes of the Cedo Station. Got the remnants of what could be the end of Shamani out here towards the south. Light on, though, from behind. Ty with the Digi in hand. From the other side, grab lips extended. Second crew looking up here across the backside of a crossout on at least the wall. They're going to find safety for now. Shamani extending this one out quite a long time here, and this is going to be something that might be punished not only in Shamani now, but also Light on here.
Atlas and Light on. We're in a little bit of a skirmish of their own.
It is.
Dark Veil coming on out. The shield barrier as well. Gonna move on up a little bit slower than usual. They know that there's nowhere for them to run. With the zone being at their back, your health can only withstand so much pressure before you go down. Atlas, though, aren't crazy enough to chase them into that far distance. Or maybe they are. I take it back.
Zone 3 can be very punishing here, and they're lucky that they get at least a close knock to potentially capitalize and get some resources off and on. It won't be that KP, but it is still something that I kind of question in terms of their setup for these end games. When we talk about making our way over towards the western side of the map where we do see things ending here, it's not a lot of time. 20 seconds on the board with little expectations. Blind evacing into a position like that can be incredibly risky.
Now to go through the tunnel. Going to be very much on guard, but they'll notice that the one threat that was there has recently moved on through. So they're able to find safe passage, and now we worry the dangers they're about to walk into. Said that Zone 3 will be incredibly punishing. These players are slowly pushed together, and 16 teams still on the board. And we're about to get a little bit crazy.
We'll see what LeCoultre can do here. They themselves extending in this checkpoint area, potentially catch up on what might be Safe Bear or even Myth here in moments to go. Kind of having the secluded nature of these walls can actually be something of a benefit even in this further zone here. A couple of smokes from Falcon and they can make the cross and maybe even potentially veer out their backside and come out on top.
Yeah, but Colts still looking at their options. They're in a bit of a triangulated position and have both Myth Esports peppering some shots in from the side, and Pot has their eyes on them as well, even if they're not engaging in this exact moment. So Bacolt, they're a bit of an impasse, and it seems they're going to be opting to just face Myth Esports head on, rushing on in. Already conduit to the back of it, Rolling Thunder going on through. Heavy resources committed into this battle. Myth are confident that they can take the Colt on at full strength. It's a nice shot with the shield barrier. Significant damage has been done. Now it's only their choice of if they opt to push on through, but Colt now noticeably weaker, and we'll have to shield up.
This is tough though for Myth. They still have to deal with this from behind. Likely, I believe, Safe Bear there taking their time on terms of this rotation prevents them going for the deep dive and capitalizing on things like that energy barricade that they just utilize alongside, like you said, the rest of their ultimate utility. For Myth Esports, 40 seconds to go, and unless this is exceptionally quick and clean here, they're going to be out in the open where they need to have some of these utilities available to survive here in just 30 seconds.
And they are sniffed on out as well. Don't have a ton of resources to go ahead and work with. The smoke is back up, has to instantly be pumped on in. With understand the dangers that they are in, being sandwiched between not one, but two different squads on that far end. We're going to go back to more of this beach side where MPC was taking a battle earlier on in this round, and we're finding themselves locked up with Hot, a team that we expected to have incredibly high performances so far in this series. And what can they realistically try to do? Well, 3 dragons, they're going to attempt the revive. This barrier slowly is going to start to push them on in. The positioning ever the more risky.
Myth here able to get some minor recovery, but not before evacs utilized just ahead of them here. It's literally seconds before they themselves find themselves dropped out. Linkser with the first knock there. While Jord is to fall, it is still 2v1 that puts them up on the board. And finally, the slow game here, taking all their time in the world. Safe Bear out from the corner. It is Linkser against the world with a single bow check, with the zone finally though closing just on edges. And he actually finishes! Eliminates them just before going down himself.
Wow. I mean, that was 4 squads down instantaneously, but Colt walking away with more eliminations than they arguably should have in that matter, because Linkser showed up with the bull check, was playing target practice, and found the bullseye time and time again. Now, only 6 squads remaining, and Atlas about to take this one down to 5. You're circling the rock that NPC is yet to drop down from the entire time. Shotting that last player out. Oh, you are in a heap of trouble right now. Atlas, they at least have the smoke to keep an attempt to push on forwards, and the final ring not playing favorably. There aren't a terrible amount of spots to play behind, and NPC arguably have the only one.
This is tough here, and notably, it's going to be Zuni on that recovery, but Pot
say
versus MPC is going to be the deciding fight of this game, and you have to worry about someone like Zuni from Atlas getting into the thick of things here. One bad move from MPC overextending, and from behind, a knock will come through. And for a team like Pot, they're more than happy to take advantage. The only team with current position in zone. Kryzen and crew, they're going to look towards the skies here for Kneecap and see if they themselves can find a happy home as they take their landing on rocks ahead. You can see the damage that, well, at least they have to endure.
Everyone still has enough health to spare. It's nothing entirely permanent. Pot being on top of this rock. Prestis taking some significant hits. Smoke into the vision. There's not much that you can really try to see from this vantage point. It's a nice move, preventing these snipers from getting the same amount of value that they have had previously. It's only a matter. It's going to be Zolban going on down. Robin, MPC. One of the two full squads, or three full squads, that are still remaining and gonna make their next move now, moving towards the edge of zone instead. Will eventually be pushed back up onto this rock and have an incredible vantage point of where everyone else is located.
For MPC over on the other side, like we said, the remnants of Kneecap, and even for Pot, they themselves, little cover over towards our west end. For all these teams, it's actually the spacing that they don't have that begins to be a bit of a question here. You do have Ozus kind of on an extension over there towards the north, but I mean, with Taylot down, shot from afar from Kryzen, that's the first knock. A Rolling Thunder expended here, but still good sizable chunk of time left to make. There is going to be that revive stuck out, but I'll try to take advantage.
Taskmaster tried to go up behind NPC, soon realized you had to bail on out. The smokes were committed. Well, you don't have that resource in your back pocket for the next couple of seconds, and it very well could be the last of game number 2. Potter trying to rotate into the position that they recently saw MPC relocated on, but only to find that they have made the move themselves around the side, and Kneecap were in a bit of trouble. They can drop on down to the Watson, but who's going to be able to save them? And now it's Roman dropping in from above, gets knocked out of the fray. Kneecap, they're going to be down and bleeding, but this opens the door wide. Pot are now able to make that final move onto the top. All the players clattered down on below. This ring starts to close here. We might not even get to see the ring close with how good a position Pot are in. There's no way that they can be taken out.
It is a victory lap for the likes of Pot here to find their win. One that you almost felt they could have been deserving of coming out of our first one. This time around, though, they at least keep us on our toes for our match day as a whole. Taskmaster, Ozus, and Prestis, we talk about them a lot coming in from previous Pro League iterations, and finally, they represent.
Yeah, we had high expectations for the squad heading into today. Maybe a subpar performance in game number 1, but this is where those expectations land here, coming away with a first place finish, and they looked really good while doing it, especially noticing some of the positioning they were taking around that final circle really allowed them to control that area, kind of herd all of their opponents into one spot, eventually claim the high ground on the rock, and what became a god spot for them to close out that final round.
Well, it's enough that to put them on top with a win, but is it something that helps them catch up on the leaderboard? Let's take a look and see where they fall after their big success here, because for the likes of MPC, they still finish in third.
Okay. And they're still above 53 points. Granted, that gap has now narrowed. Pot and Atlas at 27 apiece. You're no longer double what your opponents had, but you're pretty darn close to it.
It is still an incredibly difficult scoreline to surmount here for so many of these teams. 26 points separating Atlas and Pot from potentially being there on the edge. Kneecap, though, even though they don't come out with the win, this is a game that pushes them at least into the top 4. And I remind folks at home, even your positions will be something that counts towards your overall split points. We're going to go to a short break. When we come back, we'll send our friends onto Storm Point one final time. It is with happy faces that I say, welcome back to the ALGS Challenger Circuit here for our teams and maybe even those watchers at now home. It is a tough day to be playing in the Challenger Circuit, and you may ask why. Well, we'll let the scoreboard answer that question here. For a team like NPC, they are the answer.
NPC, even if they didn't finish out in first, a third followed up by a game one with 22 elimination points. Not 12, 22 on the lobby. That is over a third of the players that are inside. And I mean, after a second incredible performance, it really does come down to it. Zephyr, can they even be stopped at this point?
This is... 53 points is something that some teams don't even see all day long. For NPC, it's something they've accumulated in just 2. If they stayed on this pace, we'd be talking about an 150-point day from a roster like that. Coming out of their first game, I want to point out that they were dropping numbers like 6,000 damage off of their very first appearance. A scoreline that doesn't appear for some teams after 3 entire games. They have made it clear that they are here not only to dominate, but to walk away with that coveted Pro League qualifier spot, and those other teams, well, they're going to have to rip and tear it from their hands.
And they will go down kicking, screaming, and fighting in order for that to happen. And I mean, NPC, Atlas, Pot, those have been the 3 squads that have had consistently good performances across our 2 games thus far. And, you know, one team that hasn't been showing up where we really thought they might is Forbidden Gaming, only accumulating a single point across both of our Storm Point rounds thus far. Will they be able to turn it around for our final match on this map before we switch it up onto World Ads? We're going to have to wait and see.
It's something that we've yet to see the answer from here, at least for Forbidden Gaming. And notably, they do get at least a decent start here on map over towards Ceto Station, so a central position to give them clean rotations to what could be any one of their end games. But as we saw from last matchup, failing to really find their success in the 3v3, and as much as they went for a deep and negative rotate, they still were unable to truly set themselves up for recovery here. This is their last chance, though. Storm Point one final time.
One final run back on our first map of the day, where we get to change up the whole game so far. We had 3 teams that have been repeatedly towards the top. Is anyone else ready to throw hands and give them a run for their money to get ready to drop on in? Composition staying relatively the same across the board. No, not too many surprises. Maybe a Valkyrie thrown into the mix here and there. Its Storm Point remains the same.
Well, as our dropship makes it through one final time here, we'll tune in with Calm, a team that brings with it at least some major names itself, with Tai Shin representing, but still performing relatively the same as what we saw during the initial Pro League quals earlier this year. A team like Calm unable to really push past even the top 20 overall, and while Yans has been a big change for them, nothing much can be said otherwise.
No, I mean, given Tai Shin's past performances and victories with him comes a lot of success, and it just hasn't come to light here in this Challenger circuit thus far. Pot, on the other hand, have been working incredibly with players such as Taskmaster, helping to lead the charge and slowly narrow that gap between the first 3 teams.
For Pot, they'll take their time, a complete full split over the POI in its entirety here for Lightning Rod as we take a look at that first zone, and we're going to continue to switch things up this time around. Starting to look like, yes, North Pad, our second zone, completely confirming that as such. Potentially one that finishes over towards the western side, maybe out a little bit more open-ended in terms of the legs that are available. For the rest of our teams, though, especially squads like MPC, who tend to start Devastated Coast, is a deep dive for them.
In fact, it actually seems to be Light On and Shamani, who typically actually both ended up landing at the launch pad. So Light On switching up their landing point for this third game, and so far it has paid off incredibly well. Sherp is done and dusted, and the rest of Shamani is short to follow. They barely got a chance to get anything done in Storm Point thus far. It's been a rather, well, disappointing run, you could say, from these 3 Italian players, and especially going out in 20th in a quick fashion.
This is a roster that has been around the block, right? I mean, we just come off of 18th place overall in those Pro League qualifiers with the first representation of Mascanisa alongside Sherpin. For Shimani, we leave with more questions asked than answered here, especially with World's Edge on the horizon for them. For Lights On, though, continuing to write the stories that are to be told here for this roster, confidently in the top 10 with that KP will continue to represent. Granted, it needs to be a whole lot more if they want to walk away with first, but even still, keeping themselves consistent in a placement like that will keep themselves consistent overall, and in the end, that guarantees you just as much of a spot in Pro League qualifiers.
Be a matter of not necessarily taking away that first place. MPC seem to have that down under lock. So how can these consistent performances come through as the day goes on? Deathwish making a risky run on the outside of North Pad. They have enough resources, but the amount of damage they took whilst in that pod is enough for them to stop, wait a minute, and get those shields back online, because you have a fight that is about to come in. Thorferin and the rest of Safe Bear Esports have dropped on down, especially when you have Mumet and Wanted lurking from above. We're about to see a major battle.
Yeah, potentially here, but I will say those legs, if you just play quiet and small, I mean, they can extend all the way upwards to round 6 if you are lucky here. So I wouldn't be expecting them to be too aggressive, given the fact that they can at least rear its head and give them their advantages if they play that one out smart. For Wanted Gaming, though, they are definitely going to try to take advantage of their high ground as much as they can to pump in damage.
Yeah, Wanted will have an early lead on this, as it seems that Black Holt will be yet another squad to join the mix. So a lot of teams anticipating North Pad being the ending zone for this game, and yeah, you'd be pretty close to correct in saying that, but you just don't have that same amount of read on it. Atlas playing on this high ground. While they're vulnerable to fire from several angles, they have complete and total control over the trenches. It forces the dark bailout, a very important resource from a squad in such a narrow cavern, and it's only to get the fire off their backs temporarily.
For Atlas, they'll continue to see if they can rotate. They're going to be left sorry finding out that a majority of these teams have taken their position. But for now, we'll tune on over to Forbidden Gaming, the team that we have been looking for in terms of success all day long here, choking things out on this squad below for 001 Esports. They are being slowly pushed out here. An extension on the energy barricade is going to come up a little short, as, I mean, they might just grab lift confidently here.
Honestly, it may be their best option right about now. Forbidden Gaming, though, they're in the mix of the rolling thunder down into the sea. The smoke keeping my henchmen up for now. Limited health, you can pull out the dark veil, and 001 Esports seem to be almost entirely in control of the battle we see below them. And this is just Forbidden Gaming. They can't get themselves to properly stand up despite the experience of what we expect from a different squad. It will be Atlas actually going down first. This is the lowest placement we have seen from them in the game so far. They've currently in the top 3, and now to go down in 19th is a rough change of pace.
It's a tough spot for a team like Atlas, but it's an open window for Pot potentially to catch up and take away a confident second or even first if we see someone like MPC go down. Trojan down as well. These are some big names that had some explosive starts today within our top 5 that won't be here to represent the final game of Storm Point for Pot and Kneecap. This is a huge chances here. For now, though, Checkpoint seems to be the place of play. So much action to be had here as GoPro able to find themselves at least the starting embers of a successful fight. Curious if they're willing to drop down here.
Have racked up their at least first point of the day. They will end up dropping on down. Having Bushi in the mix is certainly an asset to this squad. The shield barrier getting a whole lot of nowhere.
Woo!
The absolute beam on the zipline. I mean, Gojo Go. We haven't seen really anything from them all day, as they've had 0 points between games 1 and 2, and now they've had infinitely more success here, chasing down these squads in a chaotic matchup.
Well, it might be the wipe to be had here in seconds ahead, but at least for now, for Gojo Go, it is a return to faith after what was a tough start today. And in 20th, they'll take all the KP in numbers that they can get. For now, Myth 001 moving in here. Linkster, Jord, and crew from the likes of LeCult have found themselves at least a bit of this octagon to spare, and can be good for zones ahead, but the defense can be incredibly difficult compared to a lot of other places of cover. This can be relatively open, and the pushes do come through from some of these teams that are hungering for a spot.
Squads that are in a similar position, but Myth still stuck within those trenches. Ajirasu, that main source of cover. You look out towards the coast. 001 is sitting and lurking, trying to get more recovery on the way. Inoya rather farther out than the rest of the team for the time being, and as for the teams, they want to get over towards that checkpoint where the zone currently is, anticipating it being more out towards this northern side. Of course, they can't necessarily find a great read. How to get the set up? Watson, certainly a tool to assist with that. Kneecap, have this room under lock. There's so many lines on my screen, I'm convinced my computer screen's broken.
A bit of a bug on the board here for Kneecap, is it's something that will keep them potentially alive, but Jan from the outside of Prowler. Oh, that's a good response and an answer to the damage that you see there. Funkness Stevenson slowly cherry picking and surgically removing the cover ahead. Com will take over this low ground. It is a solid start for them in a response that we've been waiting to see. And I'll tell you what, a Prowler definitely delivers on assisting on that. For Kryzen, though, this is always sad. Shot from above. Unable to escape.
The dreadful fall from grace. You always have to make the attempt, and it was a worthwhile run. Kryzen going on down in the end. 3 Dragons, though, find themselves in a bit of a contest themselves. The team rotating out in the distance and working their way through this trenches, likely still Myth in a similar position, and now this team have started to migrate with the expectations, or excuse me, the exemptions of Forbidden, Light On, and SPS towards the further end. But I think a rare difference, though, is NPC are not within that main group. They instead will have to fight their way through multiple teams in order to get in the midst of the action.
Is that very different, though? For a team like NPC that really likes to fight, I feel like, while it does come with its risks, I mean, they're at the leniency to do so, because at the end of the day, if they come up big with another incredible game, it only makes them that much harder to come out on top. And the funny thing is, for a team like Pot, who we didn't touch on there for a second, they are just as far out there towards the east.
Yeah, Pot and seeing the same thing from NPC. Their jobs aren't going to be easy. Can't say that's the case for Bacot right now. That's a good old bout of Dark Veils. Teams retreating down to the trenches, avoiding that cover. Myth getting the wipe onto 001. That's only the start of this current engagement that they're in. The shield's in their way. Start to break on through, get more control of this building. As you said, not a great spot to hold on to with the amount of angles your enemies can poke on in from, and one of those just happens to be NPC.
Moving in towards the other octagon here, they'll have to bridge the edge of the energy barricade as Rolling Thunder does slow things down just a bit. Doesn't seem like that black hole really coming up big, but with L-Star in hand, it's the start of damage from Blizzon there. The first knockdown, make it a second crack, and a drop on the other side. Amaterasu is knocked out. A quick smoke, a top off on the revive, and for Myth, they're going to try and see if they can capitalize, but this is like deja vu. They tried to do the same last time around, and while Taylor goes down, this might be success that they're looking for now. A 2v2 scenario. A Gibraltar dome down as NPC are eliminated in 12th. It's been a while since I've seen the big boy.
Yeah, Gibraltar making a reappearance, something that you don't traditionally expect. Myth's adaptation, though, has honestly guaranteed them the win in that little skirmish, knocking out the top contenders within the bottom half of our teams here in game number 3. The only ones really remaining within that top squad is Pot and Myth themselves. The opportunity to rack up some serious points in our first half.
For Pot here on the other side, they must be careful. A bit of a presence from Light On is beginning to rear its head, but for Ozis, big responses with the 30-30 are actually not enough there. Shot just as quickly in tow. For some reason, left the cover before dropping the ultimate. As a result, is punished out. They are to extend the revive, but this puts them completely out of position. Light starting to counter-rotate towards them, and Ozis will be immediately dropped back down. Prestus looking lower and lower. They'll extend their own wall out here, but I mean, it gets worse and worse.
It seemed to be a small mistake for Forbidden has snowballed into an absolute nightmare. Pot. Oh, the Ozis is still down. Taskmaster has barely 25 health to work with, and they're getting full on dove by yet another team. Taskmaster, the clutch master, knocks Light On. He's going to try to get the conduit back on their feet, but the zone is the one thing to put an end. Prestus, run as you might, because it might as well be the last. Oh my gosh, Pot hang on by a hair.
And it's just barely doing not enough damage. Ozis is going to be able to get out of there. Taskmaster is back in it. Gold knockdown shield in play. Pot have come out from hell.
Clawed their way through the fiery pits of death. You thought for sure that it was going to be the end of them, but they proved us wrong. Pot is still very much in the game, and if they can pull out a clutch like that, Zephyr, what's to stop them from winning the whole entire round? Gojo Pro, the longest that they've managed to stay alive in one of our games today. But they're spotting out, I believe, an NPC gets a nice crack with the shield. Kraber in tow. Bushi, player you expect, put in the high levels of damage. Prestis will end up falling. Is this going to be the end that NPC dodged previously? It might not be! UPMS, the last one standing on their feet. Taskmaster trying to put this one. UPMS, they're dodging and waiting out of the way. One final player is holding on for dear life. But this is looking to be the end of it all. Yet again, Pot is invincible.
They might be invincible, but now with a single member down, they have to hope for some kind of Moby or a system of respawn to give them their chance here. And even still, closing the gap to the behemoths ahead directly into the face of Calm, Wanted, Big Fat, Myth, Deathwish, and Safe Bear in the heart of Northpad as a question they have yet to answer. Calm looking out over on the edge, already extending their damage from afar here.
Yeah, Calm in an incredible position right now. Chip in a lot of this damage, and Taishin being that player who has had a lackluster performance thus far. Perhaps this is their opportunity to show the comeback is possible, with Calm being in the spot they're currently at. This next ring, as that starts to close, I believe it was Calm that are the one team that are still in a spot that will end up in this 5th ring coming up momentarily. Deathwish spot a team out on the rotate while they're in one themselves. If one team dares to peek over the top, they'll be in a world of hurt. Have enough cover to kind of viably move around at this time, and with that 5th ring now in sight, Zephyr, this is the chance for teams to make their move.
Deathwish with an extension over on the side. Danny punishing this one out, and even going to be starting to rotate back.
Okay.
They know this is a duo, and they want to make sure that for the likes of Pop, that they don't get this revive off. Loving the 30-30 play here. Genos with an early knockdown onto Ozus. That gold knock can be incredibly difficult to try and play through here. Taskmaster will be back in it, full red Evo, but this is still far from an age of cover that they want to work with, so they trade out one for another.
One for another. Yet if we've learned anything today, Pot isn't out of it until all 3 of them are buried 6 feet under. Now, while they might still be standing, the rest of the teams are slow to make their move. Prestis and Taskmaster finding their home on the outside of this building. Wanted playing a little bit more within this lower ground into the trenches. Well, not a lot of movement for the time being. The timer starts to tick down. Surely some people are going to be forced out. Oh.
Big Fat, I love this. Tracking on the tail end. They've been waiting for a rotation like this for quite some time, and all that round continues to close there. A couple of skied ordinances, potentially to give them their advantage. For now, they'll drop the Rolling Thunder, and this might be what does so many teams in here off of the slow and break. Taskmaster looking to capitalize as Pop moving through the other side, but like I said, Pop out, blasted through. Prestis now stuck below on a stairwell the minute the climb comes up. Shot from the back, shot down.
That'll be the end of Pot's seemingly miracle run through game number 3, and now it is up for grabs. The final ring is now upon us. Big Fat in an incredible spot right now. They have a ton of health. They can retreat within the stairs. They don't have a great direction moving on forwards, lacking the digital threats to look through the smoke, and they're okay with that. They have time to recover themselves and prepare for the absolute bloodbath on the way.
Wanted on the exterior here. Myth in the midst of what looks to be an exchange with Calm. Down below, Safe Bear on the outside, playing this from early on. They have one of the best positions into this zone here. Everyone else playing from the exterior of Northpad, going to be walking their way into them. You have to wonder if they have the damage, resources. Have they been able to hold on this entire game?
And Myth historically have screwed themselves over by overcommitting a lot of their utility before there's actually a winnable situation in their hands. Now with them being in this late game, this could be the worst possible chance for them to fumble that bag once again. They have the opportunity to pull this game into their grasp, but the position they currently are in, they're waiting for their opponents to be occupied, and then they can make their move out towards the front. A lot of these teams, they're scattered. The advantage of the Gibraltar here, you can hide in this bubble of safety, get an idea of where your opponents are located on this further point, yet no one has been able to move around, and in fact, it's Big Fat that will take the fight to them first. That's one, that's two. Falling on over, Big Fat, they weren't prepared for everything coming their way. The rolling thunder from above, the shields narrowly coming on out will help cushion some of that incoming damage. Myth in a risky position as ever, but it's better than it was previously. The Dark Veil sufficing enough cover for them to work with. All their opponents are pretty low. They managed to climb the ladder to the cup. They are now the kings of the hill. They may be down with the Gibraltar, yet they're already well on their way to picking up more KP.
For Calm on the other side, they still look for recovery over towards the edge. For Myth can't stay on the height. They've extended too much time. Gans looking lower, but Wanted, the only full three-man force left standing here. Clone lower and lower, and Arcstar extended from above. Mumet gets free shots to ring in what feels like the new year of ALGS Challenger Circuit. A final leap to play for second, and for the likes of Wanted, it is a happy and handed win in Game 3.
This is where we wanted to see Wanted come in today. Several of their players with this Pro League experience, and they very well may get the chance. They've been stuck in this Challenger Circuit for so long, and with this progress that they've made here in Game 3, claiming that win and surely propelling them upwards in this overall scoreboard.
For Wanted, it is something that I would say, for fans of Clone and ASCII, you can at least come to expect. Those two have been together from the ye and olden days of Nemesis for as long as I can personally remember. For them to come out with a win in Game 3 is something that will keep them, like you said, competitive. Now, potentially in the range to maybe not even usurp, but at least stay consistent here. We're going to take a look, though, and jump on over those standings for MPC. While they don't put up many points, the question is, does Pot catch up?
Not quite. The gap has been narrowed slightly, and even then, it is an 8-point game from their second one on the board. So while that lead may have been narrowed, NPC still sitting pretty up on top of those standings. Wanted claiming themselves within the top 5. We have a 3-way tie at 22 down on below, yet it's Pot and NPC with the most significance on the leaderboard.
With 22 points, that separates Pot from a potential position into the Pro League qualifiers. All that separates them from glory is the world's edge ahead here. We're going to go to a short break. When we come back, we introduce new maps ahead as we break on through our halfway. Welcome back to the ALGS Challenger Circuit. If you're just joining us, we've seen guns galore and here with our teams continuing to bolster their leads. Before we jump on over to the map that we call home for some on World's Edge, let's look at those standings.
Wait, did we have some interesting 3 games here on Stormpoint? NPC being the primary benefitter from all of those rounds. 57 points on the board, despite going out within that bottom half of teams, still firmly within the lead comfortably. You could even say, as we get ready to transition into World's Edge, Pot and Atlas doing their best to make up for that deficit. Yet again, you have to bear the question, can NPC be stopped? Well, perhaps switching up the maps, the scenery a little bit, can give them the chance.
I'll tell you what, for World's Edge, it's nothing too particularly, I'll say, exciting outside of some minor contests over at, it looks like Siphon and Climatizer. Most of our teams should be relatively good. The contest, though, that we'll have to watch is definitely Siphon. Pot versus Myth here. Both a 2nd and 4th place team competing for one of the best POIs on the map. Those that come out on top of this likely to potentially or could surpass NPC. My question that comes alongside that, though, is this something that might delay either one of these teams? NPC is unfettered over by the Big Mod and Stacks, getting both of these POIs to themselves.
NPC will have a ton of room to go. Where we look at the other side, we have 2 of our top 4 teams in line for a potential contest, and it's going to be up to them whether they decide to bail on that or end up sticking with it as the time goes on, because that could make or break one of these teams' performances and results here within the EMEA Challengers Circuit today. We're going to have to find out once we get ready to drop in momentarily. A lot of these squads being on the upwards trend. Forbidden has gotten some more points on the board, good for them, but most notably, Go has jumped from 20th place up to 14th, scoring 10 points in Game 3 alone.
Yeah, it is something to say about at least getting themselves into a situation where they can start to catch up in terms of those overall points, and even leaping up just 10 points would put them into the top 7. Right? For the likes of Go, though, getting into a contest alongside 3 Dragons is still something that leaves more questions than answers here for the likes of World's Edge. Even if they are incredibly successful here, this is something that can't hinder what is their slow return to success. And even for 3 Dragons, who we tend to opt towards in terms of the wins today, they themselves might have their own difficulties competing for this POI.
As soon as we've seen Go shake up their lineup, they have looked better and better throughout game number 3, where as 3 Dragons, while they've made some appearances within those top 5 teams remaining, it's been nothing incredibly noteworthy. Once they're under a certain amount of pressure, they seem to start to crumble. Now that they're going into World's Edge here, 2 contests to keep an eye on, Climatizer and Siphon, potential hot points to kick us off.
Now, notably with World's Edge here, this is something that these teams have had and understood for as long as you can expect. And while, yes, there are plenty of new faces, the truth is, for a lot of these squads that do rear their place here in Challenger Circuit, it is something that they've practiced, seen, and experienced within Apex plethoras of times here. So, this might be the opportunity for any one of these rosters to take advantage of that crucial knowledge and practice to give themselves their chance. Match 4, though, always being the reset for a lot of these rosters, kind of feeling out the new teams that they set themselves up next to and against, and what may lay in store, as we always see regarding a new map.
So much has changed from our first half heading into our second, and now it's going to be revealed who is ready for those to come into play. And already what we see here is that Go have not opted to go to Climatizer. They are instead closer to Geyser, where Kneecap wanted to get themselves set up themselves, and even on Siphon, Pot will have it all to themselves, Myth opting to go elsewhere.
This is a setup for them that forces them into Dome of all places, arguably what is tending to be considered one of the worst POIs. They are lucky, though, in this game. We already get to see that we are heading over towards the east. This is something that I still am just so shocked in terms of the setup. Go have landed essentially nowhere, gotten themselves double purple right off the bat, and are now going for the full send in Geyser, of all places. You know, settle that with QPMS finding the first heady on a 30-30, a double crack here. And Go, they might have a script, they might got something I don't understand, but success is success.
You know, if you're Go, sometimes you just gotta go with the ego pushes. You know, you already hit rock bottom. How much further can you be pushed down if you don't try to break your way on up?
Oh!
Across the board, but no! They're going to be shut down. KPMS, the last one, standing in a 1v1 kneecap. Well, they're gonna try to bail this one on out. The Conduit will be losing that tactical shield shortly, has to go for the bat. Or trying to re-engage the Watson up in the face of it. To make this one difficult, as all the players are trying to cover behind a singular shield to make this one winnable.
Oh, I like the extension of the fences here, making it more and more difficult. But for Go, QPMS is making smart decisions. Vushi off a revive, a Radiant transfer to give that additional extra temporary 50-50. You can hear that the revive has clearly come through from the adamant chunk of pings over on the side. And for Go, their wild and unregulated start has come up big.
Maybe they hit their head on the wall too many times in the first half of this series that they are just going to straight up run it down mid and hope for the best. Well, maybe not hope. They know that they are better than some of these other teams, and they just took it to kneecap, not only because of the mechanical difference, but some wise decisions by QPMS to keep them in when things looked grim. And now we're going to turn our sights away to where Home are located over on a launch site. We got to see that Myth opted to go more towards this dome area. They'll have a care package under grasp.
Let's reposition there.
For Com, it's a return they themselves are looking for. Remember last time around, it was they in the hands of Prowler that found at least some of their starting returns on the likes of Stormpoint last time around. We'll have to see if they can continue to represent in a but similar way here, as they themselves are looking for rotates towards that stacks area where currently, NPC call home. They have opted for the stacks side here.
Going for the stacks at Aramasu. On the other end of Fragment. Now, you know that Death Wish really likes to post up in these areas. The rotate, get some of this high ground off. Some of this early scouting on down in. They're gonna keep moving on through. There's not necessarily a reason for them to stay put. You know that there's teams that work down on the low end. And we get to revisit our good old buddies, Go, finding themselves getting in the middle of another skirmish. This one with 001 Esports.
For Go, they're probably better set up than most of the teams that are opting to try and rotate through the likes of Geyser here. Vushi on a negative rotate through the back end as Hikari's already found Red, the first member down from 001 Esports. Looking for quick returns as the remnants and the rest of this roster are to clear the other side. A hip-firing shot of a 30-30 doesn't respond where Hikari needs it. A quick peek from QPMS is no better the same. Now left up to just the one of Vushi himself. Able to find knock number one. A single shot would have done it. A lead from above, and a knockdown shield is barely enough to send Go out of it. It is 2 full squad wipes.
Oh, with so little health to spare, Vushi will come in to save the day. The confidence is oozing out of Go right now. You rely on Vushi with all of that past experience and the presence that he can hold over the battlefield today. Go, they're on the brink of making a run back. They very well may break into that top 10 if they keep up the performance we've already been seeing.
For Light On, they themselves have at least found themselves solid stances in terms of setting up a lot of good early, I will say, storylines off the end of Stormpoint here, and now extending deep into the embers of Landslide to see what KP they can pick up. come out entirely to what they want. The distance already, well, I'll say, be accumulated from the enemy at hand here for Light On. I feel like it would be just maybe a little silly to keep fighting this one up, but Ty continues to do so. Clone now dropping that Dark Veil for cover here.
Fully committed on circumventing Wanted out. They don't want this rotate to come into play. And granted, Light On, they do need to have more of a presence within this game, chasing down the KP, but is this really the KP that you want to go for? Not only are you fighting outside the ring, but also against a squad and Wanted that is far ahead of you and will have the better positioning early on forwards. They do catch the knock on down. That will be one KP going their way. But at what cost?
Well, at least the one is a start here for Wanted, who just find their success. This could be something that comes back to bite them. Granted, with most of the recoveries available in things like the Moby in Craft, it is likely they're going to be able to get full return, given how early this game is. For Three Dragons, we've been looking for their success in other forms here. Atnum down and potentially more. Juicy with the Beast of the Hunt out in play. Look to capitalize.
Spirit of the Dragon taking over Juicy. Grabbing Atnum, back of it. It's a nice gain on their end. Three Dragons perfectly happy to continue playing this long game, just popping shots into that smoke, daring someone to peek their head out and trying to grab a banner here. Three Dragons especially getting Atnum, of all players, out of the field must be more of a relief knowing you're in not only a 3v2, but with the player that a lot of this team will start to rally behind.
Seeing if they can pressure him to this cart can be huge for an endgame like this. Clearing out something that is relatively a great choke point can be huge. Extending the black hole out with a nade. That's likely something to be popped out almost immediately there. No damage to be found. A good Rolling Thunder in response forces Three Dragons back, whether they like it or not.
Three Dragons really wanted to commit heavily into that, and their positioning being forced out surely. A little frown will be on their faces after that. Heavy commit, no result as of now. Deathless, though. Battle for the death themselves. Get a nice burst down onto one player. Can they find even more? Awo, that shall fall, and another squad close to being wiped. They haven't seemed to manage to find the third of the side yet. But a dangerous situation is what they're going to find themselves in. One player trying to stand the all, and you just can't do it. That's SBS, down and out.
Setting themselves up on the exterior here of Geyser. They'll be the gatekeepers for any of these late rotating squads, alongside with Gojigo, who have made little rotations from their early success, looking to play Hunter to the prey that might find their way in. At least for now, for Deathwish, they'll get themselves looted up and might start to look towards the stacks ending that we do know this game is likely to finish over towards.
A lot of the teams eventually will start to move their way on over, even Gojigo themselves, but not without hunting down a few of the squad that can come across their paths. Take a look now at the hold up inside the Geyser. They really haven't moved at all since the start of this game, and that's going to be a little bit difficult to come on back through. These players working from beyond, and they know that this one could get messy with Myth getting themselves into the mix, and Big Fat there as well.
Dropping down from above, Voss will be back into play in full force here. The remnants of the rest of Big Mod, though, not quite looking for a response. Peeking out can be incredibly punishing, especially when catered to by multiple squads looking to play the same area. But we'll pull away back towards our zone at hand here. The stacks finish, like I was talking about earlier. NPC, Calm, Shamani, Pot, and Blacolt all in current position.
They'll be in a great spot. Three Dragons getting Trojan out of the picture. It's more KP on the board from them. Already a much more consistent performance from compared to what we've seen thus far, and now with them being within that zone, start making their way to more of this POI area. The rest of the teams are on out. Quick grab lift to get over the top. Now, Mod, contested.
Shot from behind, Folty shot from afar.
Ooh.
It's Pot over on the building. They try to enter, take him
Smoke
down in a low, try to punch over towards the other side, but they don't even understand that's the side they've been shot from. The 3 Dragons now forced back towards the other end, but you leave a spot and there are 4 teams that'll come and take it away. Giving up pressure towards the bridge line comes back to punish 3 Dragons as it's now just Juicy trying to escape below, but in the end, caught by Safe Bear. Tamuchi with that knock with the bolt in hand.
You tried to look at it. I mean, they wanted to make the rotation, but they had their heads turning 360, couldn't figure out where the fire was coming from, and by the time 3 Dragons figured it out, it was too little, too late. Safe Bear swooped on in, and they're doing the same thing, not as Bears, but as Falcons from above, watching where these teams are starting to rotate through. Shades and Deathwish managed to sneak their way around this cliff and will be heading more towards under this bridge area to stay safe, start to lurk, and look at there's teams down there, and there certainly will be one off in the distance.
Wanted looking to push out on the other side, looking for what source of cover they can find. Maybe able to play this one out potentially slow if they get their opportunity. Granted, rotating in always a challenge. Still, Askey with an initial knock onto Black Venom from the ring being as punishing as can be is a good start.
There's got 3 teams in this condensed area. Tamuchi, honestly, more off on the side. Quite a fascinating spot to be posted up in. Has the shots from the 30-30, raining down, eventually regrouping with the team, and it seems like they're considering making the move right on out of there. Hanging around for the time being. Safe Bear already claimed 1 squad to their name, and with another in their sights, you can certainly see the prey that they can pounce on to continue on the upwards trend, and even the toes sticking out from under the bridge as well. Always helps to have a bloodhound on your side.
Safe Bear controlling things out here can only get so good. They found their success with the full wipe of 1, but with 30 seconds to go, they have no place to call home here. The same can be said for Matsurasu and Myth as well. Neither of these teams finding themselves a stacked position for them to play out in the end game. Might face their end if they're not careful. I will say, the position over here held on the side by Blacolt might be something of interest to many of our squads. They look particularly low, and they're not even healing currently.
Oh, they haven't been able to get any of that support up, and well, meanwhile, that slow burn is starting to flicker into a stronger flame. The Dark Veil and the smokes put on out, rolling thunder. That's a lot of pressure put on the Safe Bear Esports. They ain't so safe no more. Need to get themselves out of that situation as soon as possible. Wanted, able to escape from under the bridge and now move closer to where the rest of these teams are positioned. Deathwish now playing within these rocks. Know that there's players hiding within the smokes below. The digital threat will certainly help sniff them on out should there be any lurkers within the mist. 14 squads remaining with how tight this circle is about to get. The KP in prime time.
Surprisingly, Atlas, the only squad to have currently fallen off of this rotation, is looking Forbidden and Wanted, could potentially be next here. And the interior of Stacks MPC, while they've lost out on Taylor only seconds ago, they'll come on with a response of at least eliminating Forbidden. A quick recovery of Banner, but the hope was that, yes, they do have a Moby. One already in hand there. Robin has that one set up on Bangalore, so if they can get themselves to safe position for recovery, we'll be able to get their 3rd back in play.
NPC.
Also,
yeah.
I was going to say Flizzon actually might have had it as well. I'm just realizing. Anyways.
And honestly, that works out really well for them, especially when the competition can get as tight. NPC maybe in a significant lead right now. Fighting a 2v3 scenario is pretty darn close to impossible unless you play it just right. Teams like Myth holding out on this high ground. Vushi, QPMS, and Hikari want to start to hunt them down. They're going to take the Kremlin and go right to them. Go! They're bringing the beast into the pot. They're hiding, punching out player after player, and Hikari is cleaning house. This Reaper goes on down. The Gibraltar Problem can only protect you for so long. strong. Myth Esports, they were extracting the surprise from below, and they get completely obliterated as a result.
I personally feel like something like that Gibraltar item might have come back to bite them, but for now, we're going to see similar chokes ahead from one fat man to another. A caustic down in the form of Widge there. Goja Go, though, might be looking to capitalize all the same with zone coming in. QMPS, Mushi, Hikari starting to break through that low underground. Eisberchen, though, making his way back to the portal. This might be the entry damage that Goja Go need here.
Who learns anything? Goja Go don't need entry damage. They'll go in regardless of the fact that those nades are snipping them out. Depth Wish are on a sliver of HP remaining. It's all but one. The Wraith Portal, a desperate attempt for Shades to escape, but it goes deep down into the zone. Will manage to sneak on in, yet they will be eliminated. That's 3 squads going down. Goja Go being one of them. 5 teams still up and running. The biggest names on the board.
Meanwhile, MPC making that close over towards the side that we talked about earlier with LeCoult in that early position, already finding the initial knock from this building ahead. Drop down what looks like a thermite there, and Robin, though, we punished around a leaping corner. Who's out on their teammate. Remember, they've got the banner to spare if they can survive. Was on just barely off of that grab lift. We'll get back to Taylor. Be forced to expend that energy barricade, though, for defense here as revives come through on both sides, and a third team begins to push from below. It is, well, I say team, but a single member in that of Sure.
Sure has been here for quite some time, but sees the revive. Nobody do! We were there! His Falcons in the midst of it. The knock will come through, and it's not even close to enough. The attempt wasn't there. Gotta hand it for him to that. Shamani going on down, and LeCoult maybe seeing a similar fate. Jordan with 2 players just hiding behind these shields, and they still 2 fall again to Sharp. How does this keep happening?
What a good peek there. Taylor from the other side. Fluzon dropping from behind to get the response. We're down to Pot, Calm, and NPC. Like I said, that Moby was in play from early on. They're going to be able to get the revive. It's going to come at the cost of a bit of their health. Now on the other side, Calm starting to close what looks like a bit of a gap, but realistically, putting themselves between a knife's edge of damage. Just yawns. They'll face their end. And now a 3v3 Pot versus NPC. Your first, your second. A black hole from behind. Task looking lower, lower. Oz is sent upon. Shot from the other angle. Prestis down. And with just one member left standing, NPC win their second game of the day.
NPC said, no, we may be on a different map, but the series is still ours to command. It came down to the top 2 performers, and it is Taylor to shut it all down. Superior mechanics and decision-making and straight up aim will push them over the top to yet another win that arguably, Zephyr, they didn't even need to get.
For MVC here, it is now something that should confidently set their sights ahead, knowing that games 5 and 6 just got all but more sweeter here. Let's take a look at those standings and see exactly how far the gap has ballooned to. I don't think we're talking triple digits, but for the likes of NPC, they'll take 78.
Oh yeah, 78, totally fine for 3 games. I just want to put this in retrospect here. In the semifinals, all 6 games, NPC racked up 60 points. You are now 18 above that, and basically 2/3 of the amount of time. That is absolutely insane to think about the performance they have been putting up today. I mean, Pot, they tried as hard as they could, and they've gotten themselves in a relatively secure position themselves, a 20-point gap that Atlas are going to have a difficult time bridging.
This is something for Pot to potentially at least go out of today knowing that they've come oh so close, but still, 28 points is impossible to surmise. Even one game alone can get into the high 20s. But it relies on MPC faltering in these final 2 games. And I've always said this, when you start relying on the other teams making major mistakes, that's when you've already lost. Still though, to come out with at least 1440 Challenger Circuit points is a definite win for Pot, and even for at least their climb right now, they've separated themselves within that gap. We're going to go to a short break. When we come back, we introduce our penultimate game and potentially MPC's chance to breach triple digits. Welcome back to the ALGS Challenger Circuit, where dreams are made or potentially shattered based on your day's performance. Speaking of which, let's take a look and see whose dreams have soared upon the minds of three here. For MPC, 78 points. Well, that seems like a dream to me.
You really can't ask for anything else than NPC has. They're going for the triple digits at this point. They are essentially unstoppable, securing that first place. Now, Pot, there isn't a chance for them to come back. As you said, it is on to NPC to make critical mistakes in order for them to even be in the realm of possibility. And it's all about pushing those limits for those top couple of squads. And I do want to bring up a point as we look a little bit more down. Go have snuck their way back on up to 7th after essentially only having points in the past 2 games.
It has been an absurd return for Go. They themselves fighting out what looked like 3 or 4 squads in that game alone. That, as I was saying, you have one good game for Go. Their point standing where it is puts them at least into 7th, and now potentially on the eclipse of even the potential of 3rd. The difference between them and that position, only 6 points. That's how wild today is, Tiny Shiny. When we talk about the difference between teams, yeah, you've got NPC, yeah, you've got Pot, but everything below that, from Atlas even down to Shamani, one good game is enough to put you in 3rd place overall. When we talk about overall Challenger Circuit qualifying points, that is taking you from 1,050 all the way to 1,410.
A massive massive difference in the grand scheme of things. Not to mention, you're not only gonna you're not only gonna qualify based on your performance in terms of the standings today, but the top 18 teams, based on those circuit points, will have the chance to fight it out in the Pro League qualifiers for split number 2. I mean, just a matter of, as you said, finding that one good game, this consistency to work off of. Once you go below that top 3, the teams incredibly close. I believe it's a 9-point gap that we're seeing right now between our 4th place team and our 12th.
It is incredibly tight there, and I will say it is hopeful though for so many of our, I will say, struggling squads. For a team like Forbidden, who truly hasn't been able to get those engines cooking all day long, 5 points isn't the worst place to be, even just a 20-point game. You know, second with some major kills or first with enough. I mean, yes, you have to be topping out the lobby in a game alone, but just something like that would be enough to put them all the way into that top 7 or 6, something that keeps them considerably at least paced when we start talking about the overall standings. And the same can be said for 001 Esports, SPS, Safe Bear, and more.
There's plenty of squads here who have shown serious potential when it comes to growth over these next 2 games, and it'll be almost their final chance to make that statement now, well in with who this series itself. And you know, we've continuously seen these switch-ups within the bracket. It's going to be as close as ever, fought down to the very end. Expecting to see a lot of switch-ups when it comes to the rankings after our game number 4.
Now, if you haven't felt the pressure yet, even if you're not able to get to first, getting one of those coveted point spots is still so important to these teams, especially if it's, in many ways, not confirmed that you see another day of Challenger Circuit. I remind folks at home that when we get to the end of Challenger Circuit, on average, we only see 2 or 3 of the squads who have made it to every single week here. So, for Game 5 and 6, it may not be the complete end yet, but the heat is rising for these rosters to put up the points that count.
After a whole weekend's long of competition, the finals are here now. Those are the ones that are going to grab you those circuit points. World's Edge is the setting to do it. When it looked last time around, it was actually the few contests that we did expect to happen. Neither of them actually occurred due to some switch-ups when it came to those locations. It was specifically Pot that opted to go to the Dome instead of fighting it out for that lava siphon, and they didn't get perhaps the best setup that they want, just with Dome being one of those weaker POIs.
Now, notably, it is going to be this kind of odd start from Goju Golden Pro to at least set themselves over here on what is usually Grandma's house in the bridge. Now, notably, last time we saw them go for early fights here in Geyser, but they did have double purples with double blue this time around. Is that something that sways them, or do they once again try to do the same?
It's hard to tell. Goju Go, one of those squads that seemed to push with the confidence that they had, but it is backed up by some incredible decision making on its own. Keep an eye on how that lava siphon shakes out, and I have to talk a little bit more about 001 Esports. You know, 5 points in game 1, but has struggled to make any form of presence from there on out, and most often have found themselves victim to these incredibly early contests, and you can see, Zephyr, they want absolutely nothing to do with it.
It's a struggle for them, especially after taking damage like that early on. Death Wish, they're happy. Back to the POI, back to looting, send the boys down below, and take your time to get yourself more than well acquainted for these early starts. For 001 Esports, they'll get their own recoveries. For now, we'll take a look at that zone. Monument seem to be the place these teams will call home. I will point out that notable western hillside where you can get a lot of squads playing through the cracks and fissures, but we face difficult ends, teams rotating out of the POIs they call home.
Yeah, they're going to start to move around based on those original POIs, and I think kind of the hard part with that is you're losing an initial strategy that you built on up, and it makes you have to adapt on the fly. Shamani, even though they've moved from where they are yet last time, they still can't get a POI all to themselves over there. 001 Esports facing similar struggles as we showcased earlier. The next thing to note for now, this point circle starting to go more towards the center of the map on the eastern side of Fragment.
Taking their time over on the Ed, Death Wish will continue to exist within this POI quite a bit later than expected as 0-1 gets to make returns. Gold Helm now in the hands of Enola. That's a beautiful pickup for something like that Radiant Transfer to have that lower cooldown here, which might give them their edge. Granted, I do want to point out that, yeah, Death Wish has that back-end rotation, but everyone knows that. 0-1 already sniffing this out here as Ren Sivan start to look for the deeper Swade with shots in behind. Shades drop to just but a 45 degree of health. A quick Arc Star launched forward here, and while it will be avoided in terms of damage, the zone control from 0-1 is perfect.
Yeah, 0-1 really bid their time when they were playing against Death Wish. They opted to run away from the fight previously, and now they're in a much better position to take it out here. They have the extended cooldown with the shield going on through. They can get these knocks easy peasy, even if it is with the RE45. They push on in, and Death Wish meets an early death themselves.
I'll tell you what, for putting out damage in the very beginning of this game and extending their time in Overlook, 0-1, they don't falter at all. They're happy to take advantage of the failures of Death Wish there, and will push them back down for that roster now coming out in what was 8th with 23. A team per se like 0-1 who might be on their way to having an excellent game could always surpass them if it truly is a glorious.
0-1, all those teams would be one to make a comeback. Another one right there along with them, though, is at Marasu. They've been slipping up when it's come to these last couple of games. They want to make that mark themselves. Wanted, throwing themselves straight into a battle, as a matter of fact. There was someone sitting on top of the building. Clone did spot them out. Looking cover, getting them to get that closer rotate. So they're now in a similar position, or at least one. They're outside that line of fire, not having this high ground to come at an extreme deficit. The regen from that Radiant Transfer. Moment up on their feet for the time being as the climb continues.
Wanted, though, successful in recovery, and with Mehmet barely able to start sticking some of those cells there, it doesn't look much better here for the likes of Light On. They'll share space, but even with height now in favor of Wanted, of course, overall, a big or bad rotation from Light On can be quickly punished if they don't find a perfect opener, a perfect crack here.
Need to be careful. You know that Light is below them, and
Let's go this way.
Wanted is not a team that makes these decisions lightly at all. No pun intended. Light now. We're on their way out of the building by the looks of it. It's been pinged. Want to know exactly where they would like to go, yet don't forfeit the positioning that they currently have. It's been a game of ring around the rosy to decide who has the claim on this portion of Fragment. Wanted being in control of it for now. This player's starting to peek their heads out through that one zipline. There's only so many ways that you can go up, but several that you can take that down.
Shots expended here. Still slow timings on all of this. Round 1 on its official close to start the countdown here for either one of these squads. Both with more than enough time for proper rotates. Finally, a break within the lull there. Mehmet with big cracks, continuing to peek out on the other side. Tracking excellence from Clone here to start what will be a first knock found on both sides. Return from Mehmet, dropping down below the zip line to send Light On home into the darkness.
Light On needed to find a first pick. Wanted had their basically it's like they're controlling the puppet down below. Light On were at a disadvantage the whole time. The black hole was an attempt to even it up, and at the end of the day they didn't expect the second and third peaks to come through. Too much damage was taken. Their journey shall end here. Gojigos is just getting started though. picking up some loot on the other side, and we know that they are always on the hunt.
I'll tell you what, for Goja Go, this has been a surprising turnaround. And I'll tell you what, Vushi on Vortex was definitely an unparalleled monster back when we talked about Pro League, alongside guys like Robin, who've made their claim to fame today on MPC. So to finally see, after, granted, they had their rough start due to some disconnects and startings as a duo, but still, to see turnarounds like that as late as is it's always good.
And they're an incredibly entertaining team to watch. You really never know what to expect next from them either. And it just been the question, do they know what they're even planning? A lot of these decisions are made within that split second. For now, they do seem to be playing a lot more controlled than what we've seen earlier, instead of just bum rushing any squad that they can get their eyes on out here. So they are now working their way into Fragment, where we're going to see that zone start to tick down. Monument, though, seems to be their better choice for diversion. Yeah, we're getting flashbacks. Something we saw earlier in the game. It is Forbidden taking on Shinami. Down on this lower end of the hill. They don't have the positioning, but there's only so many ways that you can get through these mountains, and Shinami have to take this battle whether they like it or not.
Rolling Thunder down here. Double gold available for the likes of Forbidden Gaming. If we're talking about the success of setup, this is as good as it gets. The off angle from Sherp, though, giving Shimani the much-needed access back into this fight. Dropping down energy barricades, and while they don't have height, the spacing, oh so important here. For Shimani, though, taking just as much back there. A quick radiant transfer from Nisa will keep things running and gunning. A 30-30 in hand for double cracks, and one more shot would have done it. Back up onto height here, as extended back over as Nisa looking for all but the same. And finally, an extension from G-Dolphin. A success, a double knock for Forbidden. And just but one more on the height above.
Forbidden have been the team that we've been wanting to show up all day long, and it's taken them until Game 4 to do just that. G-Dolphin, a star in their own right. Giving them so much room to work here. Finally cleaning up Shinami, sending them straight on back home. Now they're going to be facing up against Safe Bear as a black hole thrown on out. Doesn't seem to catch anybody, though. The zone closing on in, they'll have the choice to either stay here or keep moving on and watch out on below. They're thinking one step ahead. Sokrat watching the lurkers, waiting for them to peek around the corner.
Safe Bear here, taking advantage of the loot and the time that they do have across available into the open bridge. But granted, with Watson fences galore, Trojan on their own setup themselves. MPC on the other side of a corner that they don't even understand. For Forbidden, they'll be the ones to come out from behind there. But you can see this, Tiny. A zone like this is uber punishing, especially when the majority of Monument is already in. This is a late position taken by teams like Trojan and Atlas, rotating when it is absolutely necessary, and finally possible with some of those sight lines diminishing. I also look towards Wanted potentially getting in towards that north end if they punish those teams out for Monument. But we'll have to wait and see.
Wanted has been one of those teams to avoid risks at all costs, and it's like we're going to see a late rotation for them once again. PC, on the other hand, are smack dab in the middle of things, moving onwards towards Monument, already previously occupied. Myth still recovering from blows on their skirmish that they have. NPC early on in the day, and they might not recover from this one at all. That is 2 down in SPS. All they need to do is punt for the third, a 2v1. Mar dropping Reaper can only run from death for so long before you two can get burned on down. That chase is gone. Myth, their hopes gone as well. So to go. Now themselves finally in the situation they wanted to be in, hunting for these players and these teams and claiming the KP that they have been desperately missing all game gone. And that's us, going down 2.
It's a beautiful start there for Goja Go that has continued to clear with success. Meanwhile, for NPC, a lackluster black hole tossed their direction, quickly popped and eliminated here for them. Barely trying to find the headies that will guarantee them what could have been their next KP. At least for now, damage and a smoke is what they'll have to deal with as well. Yes, they are in zone. They haven't really made much of an extension for their further positions. To go down here would actually be one of the worst instances of NPC all day long. And I'll tell you what, it comes from this zone in particular. For now, though, they're finally starting to find a choke ahead.
NPC have not been favored by this zone whatsoever. They're gonna have to keep swinging, find a crack in the armor and sneak their way in. 001 kept themselves alive for this long. Several squads looking to take them out. How much longer will it really last? Colt, being one of them, have slowly been sneaking their way up the rankings, currently standing in 5th place. Find their way out in the back, where 3 Dragons think they popped NPC off guard, but no! You can't deal with them for long enough. It's just juicy. Last one standing. Several squads have fallen down in the mid-time. 3 Dragons being the triad to finish them all off.
Whew. For NPC, it's a quick revive on to Flizzon there with the raid transfer for that extra bit of protection as they drop off a quick shield swap still with 20 seconds to go and a whole zone to cross. Have to put their way in for Colt. Looks like it's been getting much better for them. Hot on the other side, clearly delivering, but hey!
Okay.
Jord from above. He's gonna have to deal with 2 here, but is another knockdown, drag out fight there. Potentially with good extension over towards the right angle. They might be able to extend it, but a revive is stuck nonetheless.
This is the fight you want to be taking against Taskmaster himself. They're trying to get on Outpot, have been relatively strong, and one of the few top teams that have been left relatively untouched so far in game number 4. I mentioned the zone is incredibly difficult for teams just because of the positioning. Half of it is within the mountain ranges, so you either need to play inside of this tunnel where there's very little cover to go around, or out on the hill where you're at a disadvantage because of the low ground below. NPC are fighting their way to climb on up, getting themselves back up onto the bridge. Fields regenning. Several have fallen in this, with Colt and Calm both hitting the hay, while these risky rotations are proving punishing for some squads.
Big damage from Atlas above, a position we talked about them being in control of early. As Potts goes down, Zuni shot from afar here, even before they are to hit the ground. Now, Atna Mohair Remix in control of the space we discussed. Flizzon Robenwald, yes, they find some early damage. They don't get the knock! Adnam gets punished instead. A Digi and a smoke, though, keeps the dream alive for Mosin, but there's one in return here. Lower and lower with a knockdown, dead and dragged out. NPC continue to remain unhindered.
Very well, is shaping up to
no.
beat their lobby. Only 3 squads remaining, and Big Fat, they are about to feel the wrath of their opponents. Robin chucking it in. You already lose Dead Sun off the back, booking it back down the mountain. You're moving even further away from the zone, and they're still staying alive. They're on their feet and wanted. Oh my goodness, Zephyr. This zone can be so challenging to get a comeback of Wanted. Sneaking away over the top of the hill. The Watson Gate's not doing too much. They have the smoke and open conduit pass from ASCII. And add that extra ceiling, extend these fights even longer, and they might just go incredibly quick. The shots have been landed. NPC goes down in a time where the lobby should have been theirs. It's just a victory run for Wanted. Final elimination claimed, and a new champion is on the board.
2 wins on the board. Wanted now as well. Coming out of Game 5, we talked about a catch-up period, and for Wanted, this is all they've ever wanted in more. I will tell you, though, for Big Fat, that endgame cannot be understated due to the presence of Caustic. That Nox gas grenade coming in there in the end actually knocked 2 from NPC, which is so bizarre. It is not something you tend to see anymore here.
Zephyr, it's straight up cheese at this point, pulling out the caustic in that type of situation, and the fact that it got as much value as it did is certainly an anomaly to be looking at forwards, and granted, they did need a boost of some sort. Big Fat have been like right on the cusp of being within that top half and getting to that third place finish, and a couple KP off the back of it isn't a terrible situation at all.
I'll tell you what, it isn't terrible, but is it enough here? And even for MPC, where do they lie? Only the standings hold those answers. Let's take a look and see, well, exactly where those numbers put themselves up at the top.
Oh, 99 on the board. MPC so close, yet so far to breaking 100. And unless they have the absolute worst game of their entire lives, we're seeing some triple digits on the board today. Notably, Wanted have climbed themselves up into third with 44 points themselves. I mean, that's quite the win to start to change these standings into their favor.
It is something that keeps them competitive. Finally, the first team to surpass Atlas after their early starts today for Wanted. The double wins does not display what you would expect. Pot ahead of them by 14, and of course, MPC, like you said, 41 points ahead on what can only be taken as a victory lap. They could load into the next game, use P2020s the entire time, drop Pathfinders, Vantages, Mirages, and they still would be on their way to the Pro League qualifier. When we come back, the rest of our 19 compete for the points that are left here in the Split 1 Challenger Circuit. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the ALGS Challenger Circuit. One game sets itself ahead of our competitors for their final moments in today's finale. Let's take a look at those stands and see exactly how things have splayed out here over the course of our last 5 games, because, to be honest, questions have been answered.
That's definitely definitely one way of putting it in. One question that we had earlier is, can NPC be stopped? The answer is no. It is impossible to come back in and knock them off of their high side. So they will be moving on to qualify for that Pro League competition coming on, or the Pro League qualifiers coming on up. And now it is just a battle for those circuit points. Pot has been remaining in second place, but Wanted has come back on up after a second win throughout the day to claim that current standing of third. Now, Zephyr, as we look into our sixth and final game of today, a lot of these objectives still incredibly close. Ninth through fourth can see great shakeups coming ahead.
Exactly. In these last moments here for the teams, while yes, the win may no longer be available, those points can be absolutely crucial. I mean, we talk about a team like Forbidden. While they are in their struggle today, when they came out of the last set of, we'll say, preseason qualifiers, they were in 9th overall, right? Had they put up even just a hair's breadth of additional points, they would have been that next best team to come out into Pro League here. So, every single point counts. Even if you're a squad like Atlas or Big Fat or Calm, who knows you've already got quite a bit more, you need to extend. You need to push further, because you'll never know what might come back to bite you when we get to the end of the circuit.
And oftentimes when you look at this Game 6, since it quite literally is the last chance of teams, play styles will be augmented. We might see some squads that are playing incredibly aggressive, fighting for the KP, knowing the difference that they need to make it up, while some of the others that may be closer in the current standings will be playing it slow, opting for the long game to set them up to climb through those ranks. And Game 6 can often be a bit of a scary sight. It's your last chance. It's do or die. All of these points going on ahead. Of course, World's Edge continuing to be our stage.
Yeah, at least for right now, for most of these teams, like you said, 2 down to 9th, still more than capable to shake things up. Pot hasn't seemed to slow down themselves, so they might be on their way to securing second, but with Wanted on double wins, always the potential for shakeups. When it comes back, though, to Atlas, Calm, Lacult here, Myth even, have not been able to get a running start when it comes to World's Edge. In its stead, though, Big Fat and Go Pro have been successful in sneaking into the top 10. Even what bizarres me is Go, a roster that doesn't even have a POI.
No, they just go for wherever they say feet. We don't need a POI, they say. They can work perfectly fine on their own, even with some subpar loot. And, you know, here's the thing, we say that, but if I recall, at the beginning of Game 4, they somehow ended up with double purple and a blue Evo shield by some miracle on a completely random spot within the map.
Ugh. Now, we'll see. You know, it's always possibilities. Apex is a lenient game, I will say, at times, especially when we see some of the Challenger Circuit players. But for its most part, we'll have to see if it fares the same going into our final game. Some terms of upsets as we look towards the bottom end of the board here. The likes of Trojans falling off. 3 Dragons, who we are truly looking for their source of success after being oh so close to Pro League. Light On, who have fallen officially out of the top 10 alongside Kneecap, and some no-names that haven't quite been able to get their start today. Safe Bear, the big one for me, Thorfinn, just recently coming out of Pro League only but 2 weeks ago, now officially dropped, right, and into a position where you would think, after hosting that kind of experience, would be able to lead or push this roster forward, and instead sets up in 17th with just 12.
Safe Bear is a team that we haven't seen on the left side of the kill feed incredibly often. While they have managed to rack up placement points just by playing smart, but they stay true to their name. They play so safe that it prevents them from getting these points and moving really any distance up these ranks, and that's where you're going to see teams like 001 Esports and Light On, who have been some more of these no-name squads that have managed to surpass them to a degree. And this unfortunately hasn't been quite the return that you're hoping to say, just coming down from the Pro League, and with so much of this experience of prowess kind of set up within this bottom half. You have to wonder, especially with a single point gap tying places 11 through 13 to the top 10, who's going to be able to make those moves.
Those moves can only be answered by our final game. We'll jump into character selection here, but this is the last moments for our teams to represent the Split 1 finals. Put up the points now, transfer them to your challenger circuit overall, and set yourself up for an easy walk into one of those top 18, or if you're like NPC, you know, a pickup in terms of the qual directly.
Yeah, taking the easy way out, you could say, but it has been far from easy. Now that you're looking on in, NPC may have solidified themselves the lead, but the places below yet to be set in stone. I'm going to roll out here on World's Edge for the third and final time, concluding our run throughout today. Got to see where a lot of these teams go. It hasn't been consistent so far.
Well, as our dropship makes its way through one final time here during match 6, it is the last moment for our teams to write the stories they've been waiting all season to do. It'll start with potentially some fights, some contests, but arguably all these Game 6 always see the same pace. Timings get more aggressive, squads get more close, and those points become oh so more important.
Let's scope this quadrant out here.
Absolutely will. A team like Kneecap has been rather lost within the names that have come
Ultimate
up
accelerate
today. One top 3 appearance. It wasn't nearly enough to push them over the edge, and they've just kind of been there in a lot of ways today and find themselves right down below Lava Fisher. A lot of teams more geared towards where this circle currently lies. And from what we can tell, no contests necessarily in the near future.
Well, for return, Trojan, the Cult, Atlas, Kneecap. This is their chance. Landslide up to Fissure, a finish just on the outskirts here. They have the prime real estate to set themselves up to at least deliver one final resurgence here in this Game 6.
It's entirely possible with the way that they've been playing thus far, and it's really only a matter of time until they start to find that momentum and not really let it get to you head. Maybe you haven't performed as well as you have anticipated in today's matches. Still several more weeks of Challenger Circuit to go. If this doesn't live up to your expectations, where as NPC have surpassed all expectations that we have definitely set for them, and likely the ones that they have put up for themselves. It's only really a matter of time before they break into those triple digits, just going to push the record even further.
Whew. We'll see if they're able to deliver in this moment. It's still a big distance to cover, but that I don't know why I say that anymore. You know, it clearly hasn't been an issue in some of NPC's best games here, so we'll see if closing the distance is something they are to work with. For Bacult, like I said, perfect positioning. I don't know if this is the place they will call home, the real estate they'll invest in for this end game, and I do worry with no rotations ahead here, white shields in hand. The Evo building is going to be absolutely crucial for a team like Bacult, because if they are in that zone with just blue shields going into round 5 or 6, teams will Evo. They will send, and they will steal.
And that's honestly been happening to them a little bit throughout, where they'll set themselves up in great positions, but because they don't have the resources, they never really move. If you find yourself in the zone, they don't want to give up that spot, which honestly has been working towards their detriment so far. And it's a really unfortunate thing to see, especially with the long-term experience you have on that roster. Linkster especially wanting to make that return back up on to the Pro League after being down in the Challenger circuit and quite some time. Coach Gun, though, they are the complete opposite. They will run at you regardless of the resources that they have if they think it's even the slightest chance of winnable. The smokes going on down 001 Esports as they go through one knock already on the table to make it a burn on through these players tracking. It's absolutely insane, and you can see why, Zephyr. They just want to run it down.
For Goja Go, the catch-up for points is absolutely absurd. The World's Edge menace that they have become, and while no, there is not a belt, I think they've won in a different way today. We'll jump on over to NPC, who still have not rotated, but instead are found with a knock in hand. Prestis and Pot, they have opted to negative rotate here to capitalize on NPC. Now, here's the big issue, though. For NPC, the minute this has come through, they have already taken out and away, looking for their escapes. And while, yes, Pot are trying to get a response, it is very early. You're getting a revive is more than possible.
You can entirely get that player back on up. It doesn't matter nearly as much for NPC, though, as it does teams like SafeBear and Adamarasu. They're fighting it out over on this central pillar. SafeBear already down one themselves. Low ground, nice burst. Now you don't have the favorable angles, and managing to find these shots through the smoke without the digital threat is something that you take every single time.
Starting to drop down in below. They'll land directly in the face of Tamuchi there, and that is a huge whiff from the likes of Amaterasu. They're not taking into account the line of sight. As a result, will be eliminated. Now, back on over to your regularly scheduled pot gramming as we turn into Taskmaster and Prestis. Unable to find Flizzon and Robin, and instead, what will likely be their recovery. Granted, an incredibly delayed rotation to boot.
Pot have sacrificed quite a bit to go after NPC here, and it's quite the risk that they're ending up taking, and lose a lot of health. They're not going to get the positioning that they want to as this end game approaches even closer. Well, he may still be on the move. Forgetting are checking out another squad who's been along the side. Another team that hasn't had the best performance throughout today. A little bit of gravity lift up over Aku, looking for the angle on them. But it's just the smokes of ordinances exchanged on either way. Yawns, that's the shield, broken on down. Continue to push this one on through. Yeah, Forbidden. They know they have the advantage. The Dark Veil even expended as an attempt to escape. And the Rolling Thunder here is an ultimate panic out on the side just to try to stay alive. Forbidden, they could smell the blood in the water and now have no other choice but to run the other way.
Dip and dive, weave and balloon. It's still relatively early in this game, and even with some of those initial squads taken out, Forbidden should be fine to find themselves a happy rotate here. We do see, though, SafeBear playing quiet and unable to really get that initial knock there. It might have been just a little too early from Thorfinn, but still, it is pressure. It does push this one back in for this roster. It's a decent start. I do worry about extending too much pressure into the likes of this tunnel, but for Calm, they don't really have an answer now. Stuck on one side, Yans will go down. Myth moving in here, and this might be some perfect KP handed to them by SafeBear.
Yawns found themselves in a terrible situation with Forbidden, and now running into Myth Esports after all of their tacticals and ultimates are going on down, and they're staying alive for a tad bit longer. They will not come without a cost. Yawns firmly eliminated alongside falling with a fellow team without.
Still, though, a rotation ahead cannot look any good for Calm here. I know you've got the exterior leap But no, they're not even there. They're stuck inside the vault. I mean, this is as bad as it gets for Calm here. For any team coming out from the south, like Myth, I mean, you've just basically given away your position, too. At this point here, potentially choked out. I like the fact that they are starting to move out in a way. Taishin's still stuck in there, but should be able to get out here in just a moment. Dropping the back will only take 55.
Able to move on through. Spikes on the floor, slowing Miss Esports down, and not going to be committing to the chase today, allowing Calm to proceed with 2 of their members in tow. Honestly, quite an interesting holdup within that tunnel itself, committing so many resources to a fight, and honestly, are rather lucky to be escaping with more than, well, really anybody alive in that situation. And now we get to look towards the other end here. Zuni has been rather quiet for Atlas. They've been struggling to find any significant performances on World Edge to begin with. They came in roaring back on games 1 and 2 and just haven't been able to follow that up at all in the later half of our series.
It's a struggle, but one that it still leaves the opportunity to work with here just on the outskirts of Skyhook. Pressuring, though, into the hands of, well, Goja Go is not the team I would like to be taking that up against. This is our, returning squad. The energy seems to be favoring their way. And while yes, some big ultimate damage has come out, a quick heal or two says, well, we're ready to take it. They've slipped out, though, from below. Goja Go. Now all they want to do is actually wait and watch this out here. I mean, that's not a position to play from.
Not at all. Post that one out. Well, Bidden don't have choice other than sit in the middle. They do spot the players trying to res, trying down the shield. Well, it helps for some time. Safe Bear are unable to pull it back. That was one of the teams that we wanted to see have a great performance here in Game 6, and going out as early as they did, it was results they're certainly not happy with.
Speaking about going out early, we talk about MPC at the beginning of today. Facing their difficulties against Pots here, and that revive does give death with this information, knowing that they're right here on the edge. So for MPC, they're forced to move towards the landslide area directly. Keep things going here. At least for now, back on, well, Goja Go. They've started to close the gap. It's a bit of a catalyst door for them to breach through, but Vushi's literally walking this out. Drop a black hole, look towards the top. Even in a reload, he's able to find 180 damage here. For Goja Go, it might be one. Black hole does pull them back just a little bit, but the chase hasn't stopped at all.
QPMS is on the hunt. Really able to get that shield pad back up. It's already gone down. Oh, they want this KP, and they want it bad, despite really only being present in 3 out of our 5 games thus far. They're very well giving themselves a 4th to go off of there. Eventually, still on the hunt for that final kill. Forbidden have been remaining in this battle this whole time, and it's honestly impressive. They've managed to run away from it. They haven't been one of those squads that has had the confidence to take a battle head on unless there is no other choice.
Meanwhile, revenge in real time here. Pot down to just Taskmaster on the side. Taylor and crew moving on in. Send them home in 13th. There aren't no shooting boxes to be had here, but for MPC, this... Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. I was gonna say this would be the moment to shoot some boxes after what was a little bit of a ratty play from Pot earlier today. So for now, they get to have landslide height to themselves. Forbidden just a ways away though from Flizzon. Flizzon will find that out fairly early.
Be on the road. They give up that high ground to make another battle after taking off the squad that's been as close to threatening them as they have today. And confidence certainly is soaring through on out. The smokes have been extended, and Taylor takes a devastating blow. Health, they're getting sandwiched between multiple squads. It's Aku coming on through the backline where we didn't expect to have them to come on up. SPS has fallen shortly. It's an utter roll out here. Robin, the last one standing, and that isn't lasting long. NPC's run has ended here. But breaking the triple digits, can you really be unhappy about that?
No, not at all. But it does come, though, at the success of Forbidden here. So you take some, you'll lose some from 20th potentially to more here. Big wipes now against the best roster in this lobby is all you could hope for. Some would say wish for. A death wish.
That's funny. I mean, Death Wish has been another one of those teams that they got knocked out in 20th last time. They went in 15th the game before that. Now, being within the top half, a much greater improvement. Same could be said for Myth Esports in an utter brawl out on the side. The two Dark Veils peeking from these corners, locked up with the grenades and the smoke. Nobody can see anything except for Myth Reaper, who is running for their life, losing 2 out of their 3 team members. It's going to be a brutal comeback to have to make. Well, we get our good old classic contest. But Colt have been sitting on this high ground, managed to get up the purple Evo shields. They've been fighting against the remnants of Go, who is finally put down to rest. They're taking on opponents they cannot handle.
Meanwhile, with round 4 closing, these are moves that need to happen fast, but for Falcon, Jordan, Linkser, given their presence from the countdown area as early as they were here, they know this rotation's safe, and they know they've got the time to heal. They'll extend the Dark Veil just to give them that extra moment out before they are forced to fight against squads. We saw it just ahead for Forbidden. They moved away from Landslide, now back to Landslide. We'll see where they set themselves up, especially with that cart losing a lot of its momentum. They don't want to be choked out.
They're certainly not being choked out. The Colts, they're doing exactly that. Look at all of the things standing in their way between the Watson barriers, the spikes on the ground. You are not moving in. Insane amounts of chipper coming on, and at this point, there really isn't another direction to go on to. Deathwish ends up going down Forbidden. This is the longest they've managed to stay alive, finally showing us those signs of life we knew they have been capable of. This zone, a rather challenging one to have to deal with, and a lot of these teams are down significant amounts of players.
I mean, Kneecap's down to a rat, and once more, another rat to be found in moments ahead. Forbidden trying to snuff out what remains regarding some of these last players. Finally, this is what this roster should look like. This is how this team typically plays out here. They'll source out Myth Reaper as that last remaining member of the Myth Esports crew, but are unable to truly peek inside the truck, given the presence from the other side of this zone here. So, with respects, they will pay it. Granted, I want to see Forbidden win this. Oh wow, that caster bias, crazy. But Forbidden in 20th. This is the return that we'd love to see today after what has been such a punishing show. For now, Shamani, Atnam and crew.
Shamani, another one from those two. It hasn't quite been up there yet today, and this doesn't seem to be their day either. Trojan seeping on in. They're getting heavily punished. For that, you instantly have to back out. They didn't last long in that situation at all. The team had to put up the Dark Veil to attempt to keep their players alive. Shamani, still the trolls under the bridge, battling it out, exchanging these shots. It's Atnam with the rest of their team. Can get everyone back on their feet. Seems to be able to do so. Mask doesn't have any intentions of pushing on forward, and yet it's Forbidden. It remains one of the few squads holding on to this high ground, and that's going to press them a little bit heavier as the zone starts to close.
I will say, this is Forbidden's game to lose. They'll pick up the final rat, which takes us to our 3v3. Trojan, Shamani, Forbidden here. Shamani and Trojan on that low ground. If Forbidden can confidently hold them from climbing out above, this is the success that they need. It's the first knock there. Whip out the wingman for an extra bit of damage, and now down to just one final member here. Forbidden got to make for recovery. If they don't get this off, it is a move in from Trojan to punish. Aku blasted back, able to stick a cell, but is inevitably knocked out. Mosin at beating them down to just their health and more. But a shield swap keeps them alive. As Remix takes the brunt of damage.
Remix gonna take it, and Remix takes too much of that. They get knocked themselves.
Oh, no.
And Trojan, they're starting to crumble. This is the fight for them to start to win Forbidden. They'll have 2 players standing. Cracked more than enough. KP in this final round. All they need is the victory to top it on off from last to first. The turnaround that they needed. It only took 5 games of warm-ups for them to get there. But under G Dolphin's leadership, Forbidden have done the best.
This has been a story in the making, not just today, but through the preseason qualifiers as a whole into our first Challenger circuit. From Forbidden themselves in their first iteration, just barely missing out on Pro League, to G-Dolphin on Need More Bullets, missing out on Pro League after a lackluster performance in the final 4th week, to now, this full team coming together, representing, and while having the roughest of starts today, are able to pick up a win in their final moment.
And this really does show that in these future rounds of Challenger Circuit, they aren't a squad to necessarily count out. Even if it takes them a while to find their mojo, once it is there, Zephyr, it is there. They made incredibly intelligent decisions throughout the entirety of that endgame, holding throughout the bridge Aku on these insane off angles where teams generically don't look, and splitting that pressure and providing that additional damage just show that they really can brawl it out with the best that we have in this Challenger circuit.
Well, to say it was planned would be a lie. To say it was scripted would be far above what our writers are capable of. For Forbidden, it is a win. But there's more wins to discuss. A victory lap that screams from the heavens as loud as can be. The team NPC are your winners that you see.
NPC breaking the triple-digit threshold in a fashion that not many people would have expected them to come up in today. So many incredibly finishes, 2 wins on the back, and not to mention the 34-point game that started it all way back in round number 1. This team came here to play. They delivered, they won, and are now booking a ticket straight to the Pro League qualifiers.
Let's take a look and see exactly where those points end up, because we know it's triple digits, but I want to hear the exact number from this roster, because at the end of the day, that is just absurd here.
Ugh. And to think that there is a 40-point gap between first and second place, and the second place team is Pot. That was the squad that we expected to come out on top today. And NPC blew it out of the water, and that's honestly an understatement in itself. And I mean, between the standings from below, take a look at where some of these squads ended up. Goja Go, despite essentially AFKing games 1 and 2, managed to get themselves all the way up to 6th at the end of the day. Quite a comeback story in itself, and see Forbidden starting to climb themselves on up to 4th place. Zephyr, what a turnaround.
I said it. These games are so close that just 1 game alone was enough. And Forbidden, to say that is a game is an understatement.
Oh,
that was a
goodness.
monument of a performance for G-Dolphin, Aku, and Henchman there. For Forbidden, this is something that will hopefully keep this roster alive as we look towards future weeks alongside Pot and Wanted, who they themselves also leaped to an exponential factor here. And while they won't be on their way forward, it is still an excellent place to start your Challenger Circuit story off to.
Absolutely. Stories were made here today, and it's only the start of our EMEA Challengers circuits. NPC may be moving on, but there's plenty of other hopefuls looking to make a name for themselves within this today. I mean, Zephyr, as we get to look ahead to the future, the Challenger circuit still has so much more to offer, and this is only the building block for the start.
Whether it be new faces or potentially some returning here, Challenger Circuits 2, 3, and 4 will leave the book open on those who will then go on to compete for their chance to be a part of the Pro League Split 2. I want to give a huge shout out to our crew on the back end today, for Wartruck, Rose, and more, to, of course, our lovely main man behind Tails for putting together this lovely broadcast, and of course everyone who makes sure that the Challenger circuit here on ALGS works. I, of course, been Zephyr. That has been the lovely Tiny Shiny making her debut, and we hope you stay safe and have a good night.